Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. We'll also be sitting as all taxing districts, special taxing districts, and this is the April 1st, 2019, 9 a.m. meeting. All the board members are present, so we won't have anyone by telephone. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Supervisor Pancratz, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item in the agenda is called Call to the Public, and this is held for the public's benefit to allow individuals to address issues within the board's jurisdiction. Board members may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to Arizona revised statutes, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to criticism, or scheduling the matter for further discussion and a decision at a future date. Is there anyone here that isn't in the agenda that would like to address, not that isn't in the agenda, whose item is not in the agenda that would like to address the board? I do have a call to the public on B&C Colonia. Do we have a B&C Colonia item in the agenda? No, we don't? Okay, but would you please come up, Gail?
Good morning.
Good
morning.
My name is Gail Castricone. I reside at 12396 40th Street. I have brought my binder.
Oh, that's dangerous right there.
That was given to me by Nancy and I after we established the improvement district and finished the sewer connection project. This book is filled with flyers of our cleanup projects, block watches, and meetings with the county. Over the years, there have been many homeowners that have tried to improve our neighborhood, but we still have a hard road ahead of us. There is a quote I heard that said, "A law without teeth is no law at all." I have found that to be so true in the B&C Colonia area. Trashy vacant lots, junk cars, slumlords, gangs, graffiti, and trailer parks that should be condemned are still present in our area. The county has been extremely lenient with these property owners who are in violation of codes and laws and extremely slow in addressing these issues. Years of neglect continue to plague this area. I have made numerous contacts with my neighbors who are desiring to have a clean and safe environment to raise their families in. We will be reaching out to 25 of our neighborhood families. This is an annual event at Easter. The Easter basket will be full of candy, small gifts, and literature from the county pamphlets with information and phone numbers for reporting crime, graffiti, and news about our butterfly project. I always like to end with good news. I gave all of you a butterfly so that you will continue to be aware of our butterfly project. And with your full cooperation, we can and will restore this area. I am looking forward to continually working with you and your staff. A big thanks to Pat Henderson, who got the owners of the corner of C and 5th Street to clean up their lot. And also a thank you to David White Construction, who is donating wood for fencing as we need it. God bless you, God bless America, and have a happy spring and a happy Easter.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you for the butterflies.
Yes. Oh, they're so pretty.
I don't know how long those bunnies are going to last, though. All right. Is there anyone else in the call to the public section that would like to address the board? Sure.
First Director of Amberley's Place. I just wanted to make the Board of Supervisors aware that April is Child Abuse Awareness Month. Only 1 in 10 children ever report that they have been a victim of abuse. And so Saturday we had a huge kickoff event. We had the Arizona Cardinals come down. Our county attorney was kind enough to come and join us. And it was a big event, just letting kids know that we love them, we care about them, we appreciate them. You're going to see pinwheels throughout Yuma County, and we're hoping to have them out in Welton again, and we're hoping that Supervisor Simmons can help us with that. But you're going to see pinwheels throughout the county. Those pinwheels are reminding our kids we love them, they're important to us, and that we care about them. In April, we always have more reports of child abuse than any other month, simply because we let the kids know it's okay to make that report. And that's the thing that we were asking the Cardinals to do. You are football players, you're heroes to these kids. Please let them know that it's okay, that they make a report, and they should. You are Board of Supervisors. You are leaders of our community. You are also heroes to our community. Please, please use your influence to let these children know it's okay for them to make a report. It's okay for them to be safe. And help us, please, keep them safe in our community. We're thankful for you and for your support. Thank you so much.
Oh, you forgot to give us your name. I know we know you, but
Diane Umphris, Director of Amberley's Place.
twice.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Diane.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes?
a couple of things. Wanted to thank the Bidwell family for their support of our community. And Nicole Bidwell came down with her little puppy, which probably weighs 100 pounds and paws as big as my fist. That dog was massive. Also, it was brought to my attention that other counties have official county animals. And so I thought that maybe it was something that we should consider.
The way you're looking at me, huh?
Well, you're the chairman, and, you know, when I mentioned to you before, you told me, well, I think we should have the unicorn as our official logo.
That is not true. That's why you looked at me. I thought you were Chihuahua.
I support the chairman, or Chihuahua maybe. I support the chairman in his request. So I just wanted
Are you
bring
going
that
to
up.
say April Fools, I hope?
You know,
Oh,
no,
you
he's
remember
always,
what the-
he's always this way. He's always this way.
Yes, April Fools. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Okay, all right.
Mr. Chairman, one more thing.
No.
We talked about
Oh,
now.
my God, he got-
No, this is something
That's funny.
serious. This is something serious. I'd just like to take a moment of kind of silence to honor those two Marines that were killed this weekend in the training accident out here. You know, we always think about them when they're at war and stuff, but the training is just as dangerous as the real thing. And I think that kind of brought that home this weekend. So I just want to take a moment to remember them.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next item in the agenda, presentations, proclamations, and appointments. During this segment of the agenda, board members may discuss the presentations and proclamations, may announce appointments to the Yuma County Planning and Zoning Commission and the Yuma County Board of Adjustment. No legal actions will be taken. There is no appointments. There are no appointments. Susan, do you have an appointment?
No. Once you're done with that, I have something I want to say.
Oh, okay, all right. I'm done with that. Do you want me to continue with the board, or you want to say something before I move
I
on?
was just going to mention that the county line this
I'm gonna do that. It's
is,
fine.
oh, perfect, great.
Right. So the next item is presentation of the Yuma County line by Yuma 77, the Yuma County Government Channel. But because this is Yuma County Government Employee Appreciation Month, we're going to have a segment, a video segment, introducing us to the employees that have been nominated for Employee of the Year. Is that correct? We're not gonna have that normal, 3 or 4 minute video about everything that's going on. So are you ready? All right.
County is an essential part of the justice system that provides a fair and impartial forum for resolution of disputes, striving to provide meaningful access to the courts by all. In order to provide this to the community, nearly 400 employees work tirelessly behind the scenes. This year, 2 court employees have stood out among their peers and have been nominated for the 2018 Employee of the Year. Danae Figueroa. As the Law Library Manager, Danae Figueroa has done a career's worth of work in the 2 short years she has been with the Yuma County Superior Courts. In 2018 alone, she and her staff of 1 helped approximately 4,000 customers obtain forms and instructions, along with conducting 16 legal information clinics that served hundreds of participants. Her work in the development of the Navigator program uses unpaid interns that gain valuable experience and college credit while helping customers, and saves the court money by reducing the need for employees to help patrons. Danae led a remodel team to repurpose the space where public legal clinics and employee trainings are now held. This work led to the award of the 2018 Strategic Award for improving court processes to better serve the public. Danae Figueroa's commitment to the Access to Justice initiative, leadership in creating programs for those who cannot afford an attorney, and dedication to Yuma County Superior Courts make her a fitting candidate for the 2018 Yuma County Superior Court Employee of the Year. Vianette Munoz. In her 12 years working for adult probation, Vianette Munoz has risen steadily in her current position as Probation Services Supervisor. It is her unbridled desire to see staff and coworkers succeed that bring value to this woman, described as a workhorse. With her promotion to supervisor, Vianette became an integral part of the training program team that brings incoming probation and surveillance officers up to speed. She is now the lead in this effort, ensuring under her guidance the training is purposeful, meaningful, and efficient. Often she assists officers with fieldwork, covering court testimony and other department needs. Vianette ensures staff are the best officers they can be. It is Vianette Munoz's impeccable work ethic, consistent positive attitude, and competency as a manager that make her a candidate for the 2018 Superior Court Employee of the Year. There are your 2018 Yuma County Superior Court Employee of the Year nominees. Across Yuma County, over 1,200 employees work to provide local services to a community larger than some U.S. states. Every day, these people provide the labor and expertise required to ensure all of us enjoy life in Yuma County. So, we take time to recognize some of those who have stood out each year. This year, 5 county employees have stood out among their peers and have been nominated for the 2018 Yuma County Employee of the Year. Myra Alexandri. In her role as the Yuma County Benefits Manager, Myra Alexandri has played a pivotal role in employee benefits during her 9 years with the county. In this position, she must maintain the highest of standards and is credited for having the highest professional and ethical manners. From facilitating benefit seminars and benefit fairs to coordinating and conducting wellness trainings for all employees, she even successfully thwarted $2 million in IRS penalties to the county through her keen skills at record keeping and negotiating between parties. Her encouragement has helped countless employees to become active in the Yuma County Employee Wellness Incentive Program. Myra's dedication to the health and well-being of all Yuma County employees is noteworthy and is the reason she's being considered for the 2018 Yuma County Employee of the Year. Rebecca Brendel. Becky Brendel has worked for the Yuma County Library District for nearly 7 years, and during this time has shown herself to be an exemplary employee. In an area that is always on showcase to the public, Becky's customer service skills are noteworthy and is one reason many staff members call on her when technology-related questions come up. Over the last year, Becky has increased community attendance at many library events, specifically the One Book Yuma and LibraryCon events. Becky's commitment to literacy goes further than Yuma County. She takes a role in planning the Arizona Library Association Conference, where she chairs the Professional Development Committee. This ensures webinars and staff training across the state. It is this drive to assist, learn, change, and improve that sets Becky Brendel apart and qualifies her as a candidate for the 2018 Yuma County Employee of the Year. Jesus Cervantes. With nearly 9 years of service to Yuma County, Jesus Cervantes has held positions of increasing responsibility while working for information technology services. Starting as a PC technician, Jesus is now the front line when it comes to cybersecurity as the IT Security Administrator. In his role, Jesus provides protection, education, and mitigation of all issues cyber, while juggling the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of our data systems. While all county employees, departments, and agencies enjoy nearly flawless IT service, it is Jesus' efforts that secures their flow of work while hundreds of attacks are registered each year. Further, he also takes an external approach to his job by educating employees through email and newsletter. His work both inside the walls of the county and within the community show Jesus Cervantes' dedication and commitment, and is why he is a candidate for the 2018 Yuma County Employee of the Year. Lucia Gomez. With almost 15 years working for Yuma County, Lucia Gomez has been working in the Office of Management and Budget for the last 9. But in 2018, all of her expertise had to be summoned as she became the lone man standing in the office as our longtime budget director retired. Lucia stepped up and continued the operational flow of this critical office and took on the orientation and training of the new budget director and 2 new budget analysts. It is that extensive knowledge which prompted her to develop a training program for county and court employees, streamlining the budget process to be more user-friendly. Dedicated to her job and ensuring her own team, along with all county departments, are a success, is the reason Lucia Gomez is a candidate for the 2018 Yuma County Employee of the Year. Yolanda Martinez. Since 1999, the Yuma County Housing Department has had one person in charge of performing annual inspections. Yolanda Martinez has been the go-to person for 159 public housing and 401 Section 8 voucher program units. Her 23 years of experience with county housing is part of the reason the Section 8 Management Assessment Program has been receiving a 100% approval score year after year. It is an extreme workload being responsible for conducting initial inspections, annual inspections, re-inspections, and move-out inspections of residential units. Yolanda's expertise extends beyond the walls of the County Housing Department, as she provides educational trainings to all Section 8 property owners and landlords throughout Yuma, San Luis, and Somerton. She also helps the Housing Authority of the City of Yuma. It's her drive and dedication under extreme schedules and deadlines that makes Yolanda Martinez a fitting candidate for the 2018 Yuma County Employee of the Year. The county's work is never done, but with the contribution of so many talented and committed employees, they'll always be ready to meet any challenge.
Great. And you know, that's only a taste of the great employees that we have in Yuma County. We really, truly have a great number, large number of employees that do a great and excellent job for us. It's really going to be tough this year to decide who the Employee of the Year is going to be. Right, thank you very much for that presentation. And we do have another presentation. It's a presentation by Julie Angel, President and CEO of the Greater Yuma Economic Development Corporation. She will provide an update on the corporation's activities. She has a PowerPoint presentation.
I do. Good morning, Chairman or Supervisor Reyes, Chairman, and other supervisors. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here this morning. And thank you for pointing out the moment of silence. That was a tragedy this weekend, and it affects all of us, even though they're not directly here, but they are here during their WTI, and it's really heart-wrenching. And I don't envy you. Are you guys the ones who have to choose the Employee of the Year?
No, we have volunteers.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
No, we don't.
It's going to be a very tough job. And I don't envy you having to do that. It is impressive to say the least. So I do have a PowerPoint presentation, and what I would like to start with, do you need me to do something from this to make it go to PowerPoint? I'm going to start off with trends that we're seeing, and these trends are becoming very powerful, and they're driving a lot of the decisions that are being made. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Help is on the way.
Oh, thank you. Okay, as I mentioned, we're going to start with trends. And talent acquisition, ooh, this is going to be kind of hard to see, is a #1 priority for most of the companies that are expanding and relocating. They are chasing talent today. But what they are also looking, where the talent is going, is where communities have a work, live, play, and social empowerment opportunities. And so inclusive education and the ability to have access to learning a trade or learning the skills that an employer might need. So this is driving a lot of the decisions that companies are making, as if the communities they're looking at are ready to do these things. Labor force markets are constricting, and it's getting harder and harder to find talent in metro areas. And inclusive economies are attracting that next wave of talent. And one of the things that I think is driving this, a lot happens in California first, and you can't afford to live in a lot of places in California anymore. And so when you have the cost of living and you still need all of the labor force that is the support industries like hospitality and restaurants and hotels, those people can't even afford to live in the communities they're working in. And so that's really a consideration now for companies. They're trying to be more community respective, and they don't want to run into the issue where they can't find the talent anymore because the talent they need can't live where they want to go. And then partnering with businesses and education is always a trend, but it is increasingly clear that degrees aren't as important as they used to be. It is more the skills. And I'm very proud to say that our universities, a couple of our universities and Arizona Western College are really responding to that. They've adopted a pathways program that is going to put people on a trajectory to employment, which is really the end game. The end game is not so much a degree as it is a sustainable life going forward with a talent that's going to have you gainfully employed. And that's what we're seeing trending. It's not so much the degree anymore. And promoting entrepreneurialism and local investment. And so I'm happy to, I've got a slide later on about that as well. And diversifying our economic base. So what we're seeing, we've been talking about this a lot at the GYDC Board of Directors meeting, but there is an uneven recovery happening across the U.S., but it's really prevalent in Arizona. Arizona is experiencing a record recovery. However, that recovery is specific to the Maricopa, Phoenix area. 73% of Arizona's total jobs in 2018, or the growth, has happened in Maricopa. By 2020, 84% of that will be Maricopa. Phoenix, our next largest, is only going to have a 7.2% increase, and there's a remaining 8%. That's going to go to the rest of the state. Yuma is only projected to grow 1% in jobs by 2020, and that is because of what's happening with this recovery. The metro areas have a monopoly on education, they have a monopoly on GDP, they have a monopoly on investors, and because the rest of the state is distressed, the job opportunities are drying up, people are leaving those areas. And it's adding to this ongoing uneven recovery. We're making this a priority, and we're going to try and see if there won't be better bills that can be adopted that drive talent and industries to look outside of the Maricopa area. The next, whoops, sorry, I went too fast. So labor trends, the average age of the farm worker is about 55. And there's also a trend in that labor dynamic that the parents and grandparents don't really want to see their children go into this industry, meaning more the labor side of the industry. The technology side is doing better. However, we are also adopting and working very closely with programs like PPEP and some of our other farm labor programs that are training new skills so these people can go into a long-term industry segment. So we're also trying to have groups focused on what the new companies are looking for and training those workers into those skill sets so that when the new company is ready to pull the trigger, they already have a pipeline of people who are ready to do that work. And then our cross-border collaborations are growing exponentially. We're seeing a lot of growth happen in South County or across the border now too. Ag is moving down there because it's getting so hard to get the labor across, the time constraints. We're seeing major investment leaving Salinas and going to Mexico. We were hoping they would come to Yuma, but they're not. They're going to Mexico. So we have to consider that as well. But one of the things that's really flown under the radar, but we're really proud of, is on one of our trips, Creamy Hare from our office traveled to Tijuana and Ensenada, and she met with a group called Cure Match, and they are located in both San Diego and in Tijuana. and they do cancer research. And she brought back their information, and our cancer center is now partnering intimately with them, and they're doing trials, both locations. And so there's a lot of activity happening because of the relationships we have with Mexico that really aren't, in the headlines, and they're not real flashy, but it's causing a really great relationship to evolve, trust, and the ability to pick up the phone immediately and start working with a counterpart has made it seamless for us to grow some industry sectors that we weren't really focused on in the past. So embracing our diversity is very important too. We're 70% Hispanic in Yuma County. That's something to really be proud of and really embrace, because that culture is less likely to uproot as much as some of the other areas. So we're not experiencing quite the amount of population decline. We are seeing our workforce numbers decline though, which is alarming. We haven't seen our workforce population go down for years. In the last 2 years, it has gone down, which means they're leaving. They're getting work elsewhere. And that's all part of that cycle that I was describing earlier. 76% of Arizona Western students are of color, and 66% of those students are first-time college-going students. And we are number one in the state for that statistic. And 45% of our high school students are enrolling in Arizona Western College, or high school graduates, I should say. Well, actually, a lot of them are enrolling while they're still in high school, too. So the Hispanics continue to represent the largest growing demographic in our region, and they're also our future. So what I just want to point out too are the things that we're looking at holistically, internally, are these 4 groups. So the agriculture, the aging workforce, and the cost of labor, the generational divide I spoke about, where it's, families are trying to dissuade their kids to go into that. And then automation, and automation is a good thing. We need the automation in order to address the shortage we're going to experience. Our military is one of our most skilled labor force assets that we have, and their cross-industry certification is getting easier and easier to do. We have programs now that have been adopted that are translating the languages, because it really is 2 different languages between the military and civilian, but they're able to enter into the workforce easier now because they are coming out with those certifications based upon that cross. And then we have 1,200 exiting annually, and unfortunately, we're only keeping about 20% of those in our community. And so we need to grow that number as well. And we'll do that, the bigger aerospace and that industry sector that will keep them here. Once we continue to grow that, we will see more. I'm positive we're going to see more of our Marines staying. Manufacturing logistics is still driving a lot of that, but also what I talked about earlier is that live, work, play is driving a lot of those decisions. And then finding adequate labor. We are so fortunate. We're one of the few areas in the U.S. that does have an abundant, skilled labor force. And we hosted a site selector this year who came and toured this area, and he was astounded at the the abundance of skilled labor that is available for food production, manufacturing, and aerospace. So that is an asset that we're promoting very heavily going forward. And logistics, our location is another huge asset that has been an asset forever, and it continues to be. We do need to make sure that the $250 million for expanding San Luis One does happen, because that is another reason why the labor force is, a lot of the ag work is going to Mexico, because it is so hard to get them over here. So if we can get that expansion done, we do have the ability, and we are working with companies in Salinas. We're going to be making a trip over there to talk to them about the value proposition of Yuma as opposed to San Luis, or Sonora and Baja. So we are trying to win some of those companies here, because we know that they're going to continue to exit Salinas because of labor, and we do have the solution there. So this is some of our activity over this past year. The picture on the left is Allmark Foods, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. I think you all were able to tour that facility, yes? There was not yet? Okay, yeah. Well, we got to get that set up. I know they've held some tours for elected leaders. LRC Coil is a company that we started working in 2009, and they finally did make the major leap, and they built a building, and they're completely located in Arizona now as opposed to Southern California. Insultech actually was leasing Russell Coil space, and they have now put in their permanent roots. They built their own building, and they moved their entire operation out of California over to here. MPW Industrial Services, when you drive down Interstate 8, you'll see their building is under construction. It's every day I go by there, and every day there's more concrete on the ground, there's more structures vertical, and there's more bins and things for them to start housing. And then Piano Wovens, I don't know if you recognize this building because they did a really nice job with the outside of it, but this is big industrial, or what we used to call Metalcraft. It's no longer Metalcraft, it's now Piano Wovens. And Piano Wovens is operational. They are starting to conduct their hiring. They will be doing textiles in this facility. And they are using about 50% of the building, and they are entertaining co-locations with them, especially other textile users, because they feel like they can grow that industry sector there. And then S&A Industries, located here about 4 years ago, and their main contract was with Toyota. They were doing the Tacoma over in Mexico. Well, they have secured several contracts since then, and they have grown their Yuma location exponentially. They added physical space, and they've added a lot of employees, and it's because of these new contracts. So they're doing contract manufacturing for several companies now, and Insultech was just awarded parts for the F-35. So they're going to be expanding here in Yuma as well.
Great.
See, I jumped over these numbers. So the numbers to the right are what is expected for this year: 200 plus new full-time equivalent jobs, 30 million CapEx investment, 200,000 square foot of industrial space that's new, and 6 million new payroll to hit the books this year. So talking about what we're working on here, we're really impacting the policies and things that need to happen. One, to avert this economic trend that's happening within the state, and two, to make sure that we're not left out. That always seems to be our battle, is not being heard or not getting our point across, and having things legislated that impact us because we weren't heard. So we're trying to be a voice for those. On the Arizona-Mexico Commission, just had dinner on March 18th with the ambassador of Mexico, Marta Barcena, and she was a fantastic, fantastic speaker. And she really is trying to address not only the immigration issue, but the new trade agreement between Mexico and Canada and the US. So I had direct conversation with her. The Arizona-Mexico Commission has her ear, and I am very confident that we're going to see some positive changes. I just hope we can get the USMCA adopted before we get into the political season, because then it might hit some obstacles. Yeah, and then our MLA visit is coming up. Our MLA is the military liaisons who are working for the Congress people in DC that do the defense authorization bill. So a group of them are coming out in April, and they're going to tour both our bases. The Yuma 50 will be hosting that. We're also going to be inviting them to dinner, and we will be extending that invitation to the dinner. And then as far as opportunity zones go, we have submitted a letter to Congresswoman McSally, Senator McSally, excuse me, to see if we can't revisit some of the boundaries. And our zones have put us at a disadvantage. And this is happening, again, this is that uneven recovery. The way the zones were decided was based on a new market tax credit, distressed area, wage income, demographic. And so we were forced to use those boundaries. And those boundaries eliminated our ports of entry, and they eliminated our airport. And those two assets are the only two in Yuma County that are shovel ready to host a new investor and could cause change like the bill was meant to do. The bill was meant to spur economic development. Unfortunately, the areas that were put into our opportunity zone based on those guidelines are not ready for investment, and we are not going to have a lot of success if we don't get our boundaries adjusted just a little bit. We found out that Puerto Rico was requesting a modification, and so we decided to try it as well. I'm not confident that we're going to see anything quickly happen. And so with our group, the county, all our communities have met, and we're creating a marketing piece for our opportunity zones, and we're going with the original opportunity zones, but hopefully in a year or two we might be able to add those assets, and then we will be able to attract some of that investment that is already filtering into the Maricopa area. Mesa Gateway is in a new market tax credit zone, and so they've already attracted investment. It's really unfortunate the way these things were decided, because what was supposed to help distressed areas is not. It's helping the areas that already have a lot of the infrastructure they need to go forward. So anyway, that's what we're doing in those three things. Two of the most important people here. This is our Friday. We celebrated our 3rd annual MOU signing with Mexico. And this is our relationship with the higher education institutions. Two of the most important people in this meeting were cut off. Amy Hayer down here in the bottom right, and Paul Melcher up in the top right. They both got cut out of the picture, and they were two of the most important people in getting this whole thing initiated. Creamy and Paul were at the grassroots level of making this happen. And as I said, Friday was our 3rd year anniversary. On the right was our first ever startup Yuma, and that is coming in April as well. We're having our 2nd annual startup, and we were blown away with the ideas and startup companies that came the first time, and we're excited that it's going to be even more powerful this next time. The one company that I think won had a ring that had technology in it, and it was kind of like the device you wear when you fall and you can push a button. The ring has the technology in it, and so if you fell, you could just talk into the ring, and then it would notify 911 or whatever. So these were students from Mexico who came up with this idea, and incredible ideas were coming out of this thing. So we're working with these 3 partners too. We've got a tour scheduled with Index. Index actually was supposed to be here last Thursday, but they are still struggling with a strike along the border. And so they had to postpone the tour again. But we're going to have all 3 of them coming over and touring our border, our crossing, and then our industry sectors, so that we can start working again more collaboratively to make things happen binationally. And then we're supporting the University of Yuma, which is very exciting. Again, I go back to the monopoly on education is in the metro areas, and we have to change that paradigm if we want to grow out of this recession, because we haven't. Yuma truly hasn't come out of the recession yet. The only area in Arizona that has is Phoenix and the surrounding communities. This is going to be one of those catalysts to make that happen. This is another catalyst to make that happen. And we have a bill in the legislature. It went through the House unanimously. When it got to the Senate, Farnsworth did request a modification to the language, and the modification kind of makes the bill a little impotent. So we have to go back, and we're going to bring it in. We need to conform with the other states that are already doing spaceports, and our language needs to match theirs. And what that does is give the companies a level of comfort that when they operate in Arizona, they will have the same safeguards as the other states where they're currently operating. Farnsworth is very open to having this conversation. What he was trying to avoid was having the state legislate private industry. I think we're going to be able to get over this hurdle, and we're going to come back, because it's got to be heard on the Senate floor, so we'll be going and testifying and trying to make that bill get through. And once that does, then we will start our application process for our spaceport. And there's still a lot of interest and activity happening in that realm, and we'll keep you posted as it grows. So work-life play. Yuma really does have a good handle on that. There's areas where we can improve, and we're creating a new website that is going to be basically a work-life play website. And we're also doing some new advertising and reaching out to the industry sectors that we're targeting to make them aware that Yuma is where you will have all those things you're looking for as a company. So I am ready to ask some questions. I apologize, I was really stuttering in the beginning, and I was anxious to get this done for you so that you could ask questions. So
Well, you certainly picked it up at the end, though.
I did. It just took me a while to get the
yeah.
tongue untied.
Any questions for Julie? I mean, that's a pretty broad presentation. That's a very good presentation,
Thank
Julie.
you.
And you're doing an excellent job. Sometimes we don't have the time or, get the opportunity to say so publicly, but, I'm saying so publicly. You guys are doing a great job.
And I have to put that back to you as well, as the county is supporting us so much. And we're very grateful for the staff that you dedicate to us and the teamwork that we have. The IMCP, the Investing in Manufacturing Community Partnership, that group is still very tight, still very active, working every month to make sure we're not letting the ball drop on the goals that we set for that. So, and that's being led by the county and Paul Melcher. I really want to give a shout out to Susan and Paul for all the help they're doing to make sure we stay on task and make this region.
Oh, no, part of the change in attitude that not an attitude particularly, but part of the change that we try to implement in Yuma County. Years ago, we had goals and objectives, and one of them was to reduce the unemployment rate in Yuma County. And that was really overreached as far as I was concerned, because we weren't dedicating enough time or enough staff to the process. I feel that we have turned that corner with Paul and Susan being so heavily involved now in the process, because we always contributed money. But I think we needed to contribute more than that if we wanted to be a player in that particular section. So thank you very much.
Thank you to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good day.
All right, so the next item in the agenda, we'll start with a long line of proclamations. So be patient with us. The first proclamation is where we proclaim the week of April 1 through the 7th, 2019 as Yuma County Public Health Week, and we'll have Supervisor Porches do that. Diane Gomez, Health District Director, Maria Nunez, Deputy Director, and Kathy Ward, PHN Supervisor, will be present, I hope.
They are.
They're here, right. To receive the presentation, Supervisor Porches.
Thank you. Proclaiming the week of April 1st to the 7th, 2019 as Yuma County Public Health Week. Whereas the week of April 1st to the 7th, 2019 is National Public Health Week, and the theme is creating the healthiest nation for science, for action, for health. And whereas a strong public health system is critical to addressing the underlying causes of poor health and disease where we live, learn, and work to ensure everyone, particularly our most vulnerable at risk, has a chance at a long and healthy life. And whereas public health provides critical surveillance, education, and enforcement activities aimed to preventing diseases before they start in order to help people live healthier lives while managing health-related costs. And whereas public health agencies are responsible for protecting, assessing, and assuring individual, community, and environmental health by mitigating diseases threats, developing interventions and policy recommendations focused on health needs of the entire population. Now, therefore, I, Marco A. Tony Reyes, Chairman of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors, hereby proclaim the week of April 1st to the 7th, 2019 to be Yuma County Public Health Week. In witness, therefore, I have hereunto set my hand and affixed the official seal of the Board of Supervisors, done at Yuma County seat this first day of April 2019.
That's a big deal right there.
Yeah.
If it came with a check, it would be an even bigger deal, but go ahead. Go ahead.
Chairman Reyes,
Diane.
members of the board, Diana Gomez, Director of Public Health, and Maria Nunez, Deputy Director of Public Health. Public Health Week is one of those times where we take a moment to just acknowledge our workforce who are in the front lines, and I've had the opportunity to go out in the community and talk about some of the work we do, and people are often surprised that we do have a very strong school-based presence, that we are out there. You know, we're talking about business and industry. We see all these festivals. Our staff is out there inspecting, giving guidance. We vector control the communicable diseases that you're hearing about, or more importantly, preventing those communicable diseases. So thank you for supporting us and letting us be creative
Go down
sometimes.
there and give them the proclamation. That was going to happen. I was going to tell you guys.
He's all, keep it going.
You need difficult spots.
You sound like, hold a picture.
It always makes me so nervous to have Supervisor McLeod behind me. Gotta hold the wallet tightly. Next time you go this way. Uh-oh, how did this happen?
Oh, he leave something?
He's behind me again. The next proclamation is actually by Supervisor McLeod, and it's a proclamation that proclaims the week of 7th to the 13th, 2019, April 7th to the 13th, to be Crime Victims' Right Week. And we do have a large number of people here. I don't know if all of them are here, but I'm going to mention their names. This is not this. We don't get many opportunities to acknowledge people who work in these fields. So Alicia Franco, Andrea Mendez, John Smith, Leticia Figueroa, Ruby Gaxiola, Esther Juarez Martinez, Linda King, Maria Toxak, Maidel Castanos, Jasmine Guillermo, Brian Negrete, Cielo Trujillo, Cecilia Federico, Eva Salazar, Gabriela Sanchez, Lorena Garcia, Kimberly Gardner, Trevor Humphreys, Estrella Fitch, and Brandy Cordova. I mean, I hope all of you are here because, you know, we hardly ever have a chance to recognize you in the work you do. So Supervisor McLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Proclaiming the week of April 7 to 13, 2019, Crime Victims' Rights Week. Whereas with the unwavering support of the community and victim service providers behind them, survivors are empowered to face their grief, loss, fear, anger, and hope without fear of judgment and will feel understood, heard, and respected. And whereas honoring the rights of victims to be heard and treated with fairness, dignity, and respect rebuilds their trust in the criminal justice and social service systems. And whereas engaging a broad array of healthcare providers, community leaders, faith organizations, and educators improve victim safety, healing, and access to justice. And whereas victim service agencies in Yuma County are dedicated to strengthening victims and survivors in the aftermath of a crime. Now, therefore, Marco A. Tony Reyes, Chairman of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors, hereby proclaims the week of April 7 through 13, 2019, to be Crime Victims' Rights Week.
Who's here to receive the proclamation? John.
A lot of
Here he comes. He is an attorney, but normally he keeps it pretty brief.
Was that a hint?
Chairman, members of the board, thank you for your support every year. The chairperson, Ms. Mendez, was unable to attend, so by default, I was asked to go ahead and accept the proclamation. But if all the individuals who work with victims could stand up, these are the real folks who are here this morning. Maria Toczek, by the way. It's a difficult name to pronounce.
Yeah, it's a difficult.
And so this is kind of the kickoff. I know the week it starts on the 7th, but this is really the big kickoff for the event. The Crime Victim Rights Week is hosting a dinner for survivors and victims and those who serve them. We have an inspirational speaker. I believe you've all been invited. If you're able to attend, it's on the 8th. My office also asked the Attorney General to come down and provide some training on the impact of crime victims with dealing with capital crimes. It's for law enforcement, prosecutors, service providers, judiciary. If they choose to attend, they're welcome to register and attend as well. So there's a lot of events going on that week, and with that, I know we have a lot of things going on. We'll go ahead and
let's get him the proclamation.
yes, get up here. Come
You can
on.
squeeze everybody in. You'd be amazed. We'll get Jonathan's wide angle lens set up.
Some of you won't. It's a lot, guys.
Okay, I don't think we have a wide enough lens, so squeeze in.
Don't worry, we don't mind.
I don't know about that. Everybody? Good. Okay, the newspaper took the picture, that was important.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you for
Mr. Reyes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, let me know when you do.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. You do so much. Thank you, sir.
Oh, all right. The next proclamation, oh, that clears the room pretty fast.
It's gonna be so nice having that new boardroom.
Yes, Chairman, now the next one is the week, we're proclaiming the week of April 8th through the 13th as National Library Week, and Supervisor Pancrase will handle the proclamation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Proclaiming the week of April 8th through the 13th, 2019 as National Library Week. Whereas libraries have long served as trusted and treasured institutions where people of all backgrounds can be together and connect, and whereas libraries and librarians build strong communities through transformation services, programs, and expertise, and whereas libraries are the cornerstones of democracy, which promote the free exchange of information and ideas for all, and whereas librarians and library workers partner with other civic organizations to make sure their community's needs are being met, and whereas libraries and librarians empower their communities to make informed decisions by providing free access to information. Now therefore, I, Marco A. Tony Reyes, Chairman of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors, hereby proclaim the week of April 8th through the 13th, 2019 to be National Library Week. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and affixed the official seal of the Board of Supervisors done at Yuma, the county seat, this first day of April 2019.
If you want to give them this. All right,
Chair.
we have Lisa, that's right, Lisa Mendez, Deputy Library Director, to receive the proclamation. Lisa, and I didn't have an opportunity to actually properly thank Mrs. Evans, the former Library Director, for the long years. I know she's retired, I know.
No, not until May.
Not yet? Where is she?
May 3rd.
May 3rd. See, I thought she was retired because she sent her. Okay, we'll recognize her at our next meeting. I thought I didn't get a chance. I wasn't here one meeting and I missed it. I figured I missed the chance to say goodbye to her and I was just gonna take the opportunity.
here
to
next
thank her.
time.
She'll be here next time.
Okay.
All right. So Lisa,
Yes, thank you so much for all your support. I know Supervisor Simmons is always Santa Claus.
Oh,
And we help, and all of you attend some of our programs. You know, this week gives us a chance to show the public what we do in the programs. We're always looking for something new, and tell our library workers that we appreciate everything that they do. So thank you.
all right. Let's go downstairs and give her the proclamation. She might have been expecting a check, but.
Yeah, money? No. There we go. I'll let Tony give you that.
Yeah, as long as I'm not to the left side. Simmons, you get the other side.
Okay,
Balance out.
Russell's in front of me.
Yeah,
so-
that's right. You're safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Good job on the safety stuff. This is going to be a long and lengthy process of proclamations. Unfortunately, I have to do something at 10 a.m. and I'll be back in a few minutes. So I'm going to turn over the meeting, grudgingly turn over the meeting to the Vice Chairman here, Supervisor McLeod. I'll be back in a minute, right, Supervisor McLeod?
The meeting will suddenly be better.
That is debatable, but.
Okay, well, the chairman turned over the next proclamation to me. This is a proclamation of National County Government Month. No, I'm sorry. You have it. Supervisor Simmons, please.
Okay, proclaiming the month of April 2019 as National County Government Month. Whereas counties provide an essential leadership role in protecting and enhancing the health, welfare, and safety of citizens in the community and delivering quality services while containing costs through efficient use of tax dollars. And whereas county governments have a broad range of responsibilities to improve lives, strengthen communities, and foster civic engagement by providing public health, justice, safety, infrastructure, transportation, technology, emergency management, and economic services that play a key role in every aspect of residents' daily lives. And whereas there are 15 counties in the state of Arizona serving the needs of every resident of the state. And whereas Arizona counties reflect the wide diversity of people, culture, and landscape in our state. And whereas in recognition of the leadership, innovation, and valuable services provided by the state's counties. Now, therefore, I, Marco A. Tony Reyes, Chairman of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors, hereby proclaim the month of April 2019 to be National County Government Month, in recognition of the leadership, innovation, and invaluable services provided by all Arizona counties. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and affixed the seal, the official seal of the Board of Supervisors, done at Yuma, the county seat, this first day of April 2019.
Good morning, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the board, Susan Thorpe, County Administrator. This is in coordination with the governor also declaring this as National County Government Month. And we're very pleased to be able to recognize all of our employees. We'll also have another proclamation that you'll hear just shortly. But county government serves people through people. We have 1,400 positions that serve the entire community. We have 5,500 square miles of service area that we patrol and provide services to, and give a lot of essential quality of life service to all of our communities. And so we're very pleased to be able to recognize employees this month for all the service that they provide. And as you saw earlier, the Employee of the Year nominees are just a snapshot of all the valuable employees that we have throughout the county that serve our community. So I wanted to thank you for recognizing County Government Month, and I'll be happy to accept the proclamation on the county's behalf.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, we are coordinated. We always do that somehow. I know. Where's the proclamation?
Here's the ceremony.
On this side. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
An opening in the middle.
Yeah.
No, we didn't plan that.
Okay, then we'll move on to a proclamation as Yuma County Government Employee Appreciation Month. Supervisor Pancrase?
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Proclaiming the month of April 2019 as Yuma County Government Employee Appreciation Month, whereas Yuma County and its employees play essential roles in keeping our community safe and secure by preserving public health and well-being, ensuring public safety, and promoting local economies while providing professional and loyal public services. And whereas Yuma County and its employees take their roles seriously in protecting and enhancing the health, welfare, and safety of citizens in our community, and to delivering effective quality services while containing costs through efficient use of local tax dollars. And whereas Yuma County is one of 15 counties in the state of Arizona responsible for and serving the needs of every resident, and we are proud that our employees are committed to that responsibility and are dedicated to customer service. And whereas Yuma County reflects the wide diversity of people, culture, and landscape in our state, with Yuma County employees developing a reputation for quality and excellence. And now, therefore, I, Tony A. Marco A. Tony Reyes, Chairman of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors, hereby proclaim the month of April 2019 to be Yuma County Government Employee Appreciation Month. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and affixed the official seal of the Board of Supervisors done at Yuma, the county seat, this first day of April 2019.
Thank you,
You ready?
Supervisor.
Good morning, Vice Chairman McLeod and members of the board. I'm Felicia Frausto, HR Director. Definitely, this is an exciting time for us. Each year in the month of April, we like to be able to recognize our employees. I'd like to introduce two of our members that will be standing on the stage with you on April 10th at the Employee of the Year ceremony. I have Besaida Vasquez, she's our Employee Relations Specialist. And to my left, I have Erica Lopez, who is our Employee Relations Analyst. And so they want to be able to start off on April 10th at our Civic Center at 3 o'clock. We plan to have the whole meeting commence at 3:30, plan to have it in by 5. But it's definitely to be able to recognize all of our employees for their total years of service. We have some special awards to be given out that day as well. Then on April 26th, we have our annual taco dinner and movie, something different than what we've done in the past, and this is our second annual. And I would actually ask our different event this year is for the dessert, if you wouldn't mind sharing that.
Our dessert this year, we'll be having churros with ice cream, which will be churro sundaes.
Oh, nice.
And that was based on feedback that we got from various employees, something different. So the taco dinner went very well, and so we wanted to be able to have something different for the dessert. Of course, you saw just this morning about the nominees that are there, and throughout the whole month of April, today is April 1st, and it's not a April Fool's joke, but it's the beginning of our annual open enrollment, so which begins April 1st through May 1st. So we're asking all of our employees to please begin electing their enrollment for the next plan year. So with that, definitely like to accept the proclamation.
Here we go. Here, Russell, you can do. Oh, okay.
You ready?
I got it. Yeah, let me tell you, your job is hard.
Thanks for the good work.
Okay. Next, we'll move on to a proclamation as Fair Housing Month. Supervisor Porteous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Proclaiming the month of April 2019 as Fair Housing Month. Whereas April 2019 marks the 51st anniversary of National Fair Housing Act, which emphasizes a national policy of fair housing, and whereas Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act of 1968 affirms the right of all citizens to equal housing opportunities, free from discrimination based on race, color, religion, national origin, sex, disability, or familial status. And whereas implementation of the fair housing policy of Yuma County requires positive commitment, involvement, and support from each and every one of our citizens. And whereas the Board of Supervisors wishes to create equal housing opportunities for all persons living, working, traveling, through doing business in Yuma County. And whereas Fair Housing Month is a time to set aside each year to remind citizens that we not only have the right to own and rent property, but we also have individual responsibilities to guard the right from any infringement. Now therefore, Marco A. Tony Reyes, Chairman of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors, hereby proclaim the month of April 2019 to be Fair Housing Month.
Hi.
Hi,
Good morning.
good morning. My name is Diana DeVos, County Administration. I
On behalf of the Fair Housing Committee, I would like to make you aware of 2 events that are happening to celebrate Fair Housing Month. The first is Fair Housing. The Fair Housing Committee has partnered with AWC students to design a poster, a fair housing poster, and we're asking the citizens of Yuma County to help us vote for the poster that sends a message of fair housing. And you can view and vote for this poster on our Yuma County website, www.yumacountyaz.gov/poster contest. And from now until April 21st, you can cast your vote, and the winner will be announced April 26th, Friday, April 26th at the Yuma Arts Center from at 6 o'clock, and we're going to be having a small reception that's free and open to the public. And then the second event is our 11th annual Fair Housing Festival, that's going to take place Saturday, April 27th from 9 to 1 at the Harvest Prep Academy School cafeteria. And citizens will be able to find information about fair housing resources and their fair housing rights. We're going to be doing giveaways, and we're also partnering this year with various Yuma schools that are going to be presenting a drama skit related to fair housing discrimination. And it's also free and open to the public.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if anybody thinks picking the poster is going to be easy, it's not.
I know.
There's 16 of them.
There's 16 posters.
And they're all well done. Who created the posters?
The students for AWC, they have a design class out there. And we're working with the instructor, and he uses that as his final for them.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's neat.
That's why they're so well done. Right. Take that proclamation down.
That's it from the art department, huh?
Yes.
Oh, that's neat.
I brought it up real quick while you were talking.
Yeah, I saw you. I was looking over your shoulder myself. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent calendar. The following items listed under the consent agenda will be considered as a group and acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion unless a board member so requests. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. Does anybody have anything they want to pull?
Yes,
Supervisor
number 5.
Pancrazzi? We'll pull number 5. Anyone else? Okay. Excuse me while I get caught up here. Items. We have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve items 1 through 22 with the exceptions of number 5.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Anything
I'll
else?
second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar as presented with the exception of number 5. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Supervisor Pancrazzi, item number 5.
The Kokopah tribe, some of the proceeds that they get, I don't know, I think it's every 6 months. Rosa, would you come up and talk about it, please? I know it's proceeds from the casino, am I correct?
Yes.
And it's given back to the community in the way of funds that they can operate. It has to be a nonprofit here in Yuma County, correct?
Yes, there's a percentage of the gaming profits that go to nonprofit organizations, and that's part of the compact.
Yes.
That an agreement that we have.
Thank you.
So you've been selected
Thank you.
Excellent.
I think this is the third year.
Yes,
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 so
thank
I know
you.
that you pick out great organizations such as the Victims' Rights and
Yeah.
domestic violence is one of is one of my very special to heart organizations that
Mine as
that I know
well.
that Mr. Smith helps out with. So that's really
Well,
great.
this time we brought, we nominated the Yuma Community Food Bank.
Oh, awesome.
Our summer times are coming and that's when a lot of the donations seem to go down, is in our warmer months, and the Yuma Community Food Bank and the people of Yuma will be able to benefit from the proceeds from the gaming, from the Indian gaming. So, and they'll be able to purchase some of the things that they haven't been able to, get donated, so.
Yeah, I know that they've been hit hard.
Yes,
And their
they have.
shelves are always in need of restocking, so.
Oh, yes.
A lot of individuals have lost their employment, so that's an important factor to have within the community.
Yes.
To provide food for their homes.
Yes, yes, to provide food for their children and their families. It is a very, very, we operate Yuma County and part of La Paz, but we do it with very little funding, as far as St. Mary's and Maricopa County has huge amounts. And so we do it with contribution like yours, and with the support of the community and our farmers and some of the locals who donate and help package all that at the food bank. So it's very, very beneficial. Thank you so much for.
Thank you to all the volunteers that help out in putting those boxes together. So.
Well, thank you. Can we?
You have a big check.
Yes.
We do have a big check for you this morning.
Thank you. Oh, with me, it's just hanging on my tongue to untie. Oh. I have no idea. Yes.
Is the check straight?
Is it straight?
Yes.
Looks good.
Thank you so much.
Now that we handed out the check, we need a motion and a second to approve it.
So moved to accept number 5 on the consent agenda.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, we'll move on to the housing.
Yes.
I will recess the Yuma County Board of Supervisors, and we now convene as the Yuma County Housing Board. Is Daniela Vega Esparza, if you could
Yes.
join us?
You can sit in Tony's seat. We'll just take
We're
Tony
gonna
down.
let you run it.
Yeah.
You get the big seat today.
Mhm.
And we'll open a public hearing to allow the public to comment on the Yuma County Housing Department Public Housing Agency Annual Plan, Public Housing Residential Lease Agreement, Capital Fund 5-Year Action Plan, and Fiscal Year 2019 Capital Fund.
Good morning, Chairman McLeod and the rest of the board. Jesus Roldan, Interim Director for Yuma County Housing. This is something that we do every year. This is a mandatory by HUD, and this is, we come in every year for this. The only, I think, changes, well, if we do changes or not, we still have to come to the board and approve it. The only changes that were this month, or this year, will be the security deposits. Each security deposit has not been updated since 2007. So, and when people move out of the housing, we don't have the funds available to finish. So the only thing that was moved is each deposit was, or by bedroom was $50. That was it. That was the only major change that was done.
So what does that make the deposit now?
For one bedroom will be $250. For two bedroom will be $300. For a three bedroom will be $325, and a four bedroom will be $350.
Okay.
It's only increments of $50.
So moves 50 the first from 1 to 2, and then 25 thereafter.
Yeah, correct. And that was the only major change that was.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll open the hearing to the public. Anybody want to address the board? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for a motion to approve.
So moved.
So moved. Moved and second. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you very much for joining us today. I appreciate it. All right. We'll go to the discussion calendar. Item number 1 will be action to provide a recommendation to the Arizona State Board on geographic and historic names regarding docket number 2018-09, a proposal to officially name that portion of State Route 195 from San Luis, Arizona, to the junction with Interstate 8 at Araby Road in Yuma, Arizona, milepost 27 to milepost 5, as the Robert A. Vaughn Expressway. Mr. Ward.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. My name is Paul Ward. I'm the Executive Director of the Yuma Metropolitan Planning Organization. As some of you are already aware, Robert A. Vaughn was the first Executive Director of YMPO.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt. You need to adjourn from Housing Board and reopen.
Oh, you did.
Thank you. I am going to adjourn the Housing Board and restart as the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. Thank you. Thanks for keeping me on track. Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
Thank you. Should I just continue?
Yes, please.
Robert A. Vaughn was the first Executive Director of YMPO since its formation in 1983 until his retirement and health reasons basically 15 years later. He was integral to the growth of the Yuma region at that point in time and guided several transportation improvements through the process. In this particular initiative to rename the roadway after Robert Vaughn began several years ago and in this particular case, to rename State Route 195, which is also known as the Area Service Highway, to be called the Robert A. Vaughn Expressway, with an interesting acronym of RAVE.
Oh, neat.
At that time, the YMPO board adopted Resolution 128 supporting this action. And actually, I believe it had one or two individuals who were signing that resolution at the time, one of whom is sitting right there with Supervisor Porteous when he was actually mayor of City of Somerton. So.
All right.
The Arizona State Board on Geographic and Historic Names advised at that point in time that the policy was such that a renaming would not be recognized until the honoree had been deceased for at least 5 years. Mr. Ryan Erfurt from the Arizona State Names Board recently contacted YMPO to advise us that they had received a request from an individual, a Mr. Andrew Metz of Yuma, who had been associated with Robert Vaughn during his life, and that as the time frame since Mr. Vaughn's passing had now exceeded 6 years, he requested that the board take the appropriate action, and Mr. Erfurt asked whether YMPO was still in support of the action. As the current executive director, I took this to the YMPO board in November and December, and actually in January, the board approved resolution, it is an updated resolution, of course, 145, and it has been signed by the vast majority of the board members. Actually, I have the document here, and I'd like to speak with Supervisor Porteous after the meeting with your blessing, sir, and get that signed. In this particular case, the names board, the state names board, is due to meet and consider this item at their April 23, 2019 meetings.
Finished it?
Mr. Vice Chair, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Ward? Well, thank you for bringing that forward. We do need a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the recommendation from the Arizona State Board of Geographic and National.
We'll make a recommendation to the board.
Oh, we're going to make a recommendation to the Arizona State Board of Geographic and Historic Names to officially name State Route 195 as the Robert A. Vaughn Expressway.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it, and we'll turn it back over to our very capable chairman.
Thank you very much. I thought you'd be done by now. But, all right, so you stopped at the first item.
Number 2.
Discussion number 2. Okay, and that would be the legislative, yes. It would be county administration, discussion and possible action regarding the following legislative items: a report to the Board of Supervisors regarding proposed bills in the Arizona State Legislature with impacts of Yuma County, and an update regarding strategies relating to federal legislative priorities. Susan?
At your places, you have a handout that says, first at the top, Yuma County Legislative Summary Report, April 1st, 2019. So Paul Melcher has put together kind of the main bills of interest or impact to Yuma County and has listed the status here for them. You also receive, when there's any urgent action, you receive direct communication from Craig Sullivan or his staff at the County Supervisors Association to sign into the request to speak, or to get on the agendas of the committees to make your presence known and to give your opinions. The second handout is called, it's a long 8.5 by 14 sheet that says Yuma County Legislative Affairs Tracking Report. Paul and I met subsequent to our trip to Washington, D.C., and I updated him on our conversations with each of our representatives. So Paul has put together a spreadsheet here about each of those priorities that Yuma County has identified, who could potentially sponsor it, the next steps for our action to work with our legislators, and any notes. So now I'll turn it over to Paul for additional information.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Paul Melcher, Director of Legislative Economic Development and Intergovernmental Affairs. Apologize for the delay. I was practicing on the names for the Employee of the Year and got wrapped up in it, and all of a sudden. So, Mr. Chairman, as the County Administrator, Susan Thorpe, was describing here, after we had met and discussed the federal legislative topics that the board had discussed, we've set up a working program here so that we can begin the task afterward of the follow-up. You'll see here, I just wanted to touch base on one. Federal land transfer wasn't directly one of the board's legislative priorities moving forward at the federal level. However, that became more of a prospective talking point or legislative point for us because La Paz County moved forward with some legislation that was approved by Congress that established the transfer of some federal lands. As I've been reviewing the two bills that were passed that accomplished this task, what I've noticed is that this was a swap to the county. So the county actually has taken ownership of the some 6,000 acres of land to use, as it says right now in the bills, to use for economic development. A majority of that property has been set aside for some solar development. So I think what we had proposed in the past, and this is probably, might be even new to Supervisors Pancrezi, Porteous, and Simmons, about 5 years ago, we had talked as a board about doing a federal land swap where we would promote to the federal government that they would dispose of the property into private hands. So as we look at this, I think it's time to revisit that concept that we'd proposed to see if there's renewed interest in it, particularly since La Paz County was successful in securing that land transfer. I think there are a couple advantages of having that transferred over to private, and the consideration I need to follow up on is to figure out when you take 6,000 acres of federal land that was in PILT, and if this was in PILT out of that program, then you're also going to lose those revenues. And for us, that was the trade-off, because we wanted to see if the properties were disposed of, that they would go into private ownership so that we would start receiving the property tax related to that ownership versus that loss of PILT. You can see throughout here, the other aspect that we talked about that's more notable is on H2A. As we had talked about the talking points for the H2A program, a lot of that revolved around administrative fixes. Since Congress really can't direct, per se, the Secretary of Labor to effect the fixes, what we're going to do is go back. I'm going to discuss the issue with our local Farm Bureau, with State Farm Bureau, and then talk again with the representatives in Florida and Virginia to see if we can't get a coalition together then to somehow formulate a strategy to go to the Secretary of Labor and ask that those be done. I want to see in the past what they had accomplished and what obstacles they'd overcome or had thrown up in front of them so they weren't able to accomplish that in the past. And then as we look, I wanted to also make a couple notes here. On the San Luis Port of Entry issues, there's some good news that I wanted to convey, that I had just received notice that Yuma County, not Yuma, but the Port users were able to convince federal motor carriers and ADOT to sign the MOU so that they would have the consistent inspections. So we're going to see how that comes out, and so that we'll now have equal inspections. And then also, as you probably saw in the newspaper articles recently about the federal government approving the $243 million in infrastructure funding for San Luis One. So, Mr. Chairman, this is, in short, a summary of the follow-up steps that we'll be taking in order to then take what we learned from our talking points and move them forward as projects. Mr. Chairman, on the next sheet, you'll have the bill summary. I simplified the appearance of the bills now that they're so far through the system that one bill takes up a sheet. So in the interest of brevity, I borrowed the format from the ACO bill summaries that come out and took this through there. As you can see, I've included the ACO bill summaries, a CSA bill summary, and then a miscellaneous at the back. So the miscellaneous has a lot to do with transportation bills and a couple bills that came forward in relation to the Auditor General that we're looking at. One of those actually both impact executive sessions, and the fact that it seemed to imply that the Auditor General could then sit on an executive sessions at the county. The CSA staff is working with language to get that clarified so it's clear that the minutes or the other process of establishing that is under Auditor General review, but not actually attending the executive sessions. The Auditor General attends executive sessions for schools because those are not, those are performance-based reviews and not simply other matters that are legal pertaining to counties and cities. Mr. Chair, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board might have.
So go ahead, Lynn.
Mr. Chairman, Paul, on the hold on, not on the H2A, on the, never mind, I'll get back to it. I have to look at it again. Sorry.
Define, not define, but explain to me what a striker is in terms of the process as a bill that goes through. I'm sure that Supervisor Pancrase could brief us on that, but just in case, do you know, not do you know, what's the process? I mean, what happens? I mean, I know that bills go through a regular hearing process and then they get to a certain point and then they're added to or taken out, or how does that work?
Mr. Chair, so in essence, what the striker becomes then is it's an attachment to a dead bill. So let's say, for example, on the first page under House Bill 2079, it's near the bottom, it was a salary bill. Oh, I'm sorry, that was...
Yeah, it was a salary bill, H Bill 2079.
Here's a better example here. If you go to Senate Bill 14444, it would be on the third page, or second page of the handout. That was the grants acceptance bill that was supposed to force Yuma County to or in any county to accept a law enforcement grant. But what they do is if a bill dies like that, then a striker might get attached that's completely different language. Could be some brand new bill, hadn't been discussed, but it gets attached as a striker and then it goes through the process at that point. So it could be something that was not discussed, didn't go through the regular cycle.
So a bill needs to have a reserved path. That's what it is, right? It needs to be sort of like accepted to go through the process. But it could go through a process and die, and that same bill number can be used by something else. Is that what that basically means? To move something else?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, they call it a striker because they strike the entire language and amend it with new language that's then approved in an amendment process. So if you look at it, they'll take a dead bill, go to the sponsor from someone else and say, I'd like to, I have a bill I think would be good. It came in late. We don't have it earmarked for a bill number, so it would have to wait. Can we use your dead bill, strike all the language and re-amend it so it's a completely different bill? One that's pending right now is Senate Bill 1313, which came in late. It was a dead bill. The sponsor allowed a striker amendment to it to allow, it deals with a body-worn camera and video disclosure, which costs, it's just so proliferate. There's so much out there, it's almost impossible to go through and review it and redact it. It would allow disclosure of that video to defense counsel, but it would remain confidential, and defense counsel would identify that portion of those videos that they would want to disseminate, and then they'd come back to the county attorney and we would redact just that portion. So, I mean, that's a striker. They never existed. And they took a dead bill. They struck through everything. If you look at it, it's all struck through. If you go on Senate Bill 1313, you can see the old document and the new document.
Oh, it's a way to get a bill heard that didn't have a number, that didn't have a process.
It was a bill that didn't even exist. So you can amend a bill through the process. They'll amend a bill. And I'm not an expert at it. I know, Lynn, you were there for longer than.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll amend that bill, and the amendment process is so, it's just, they strike everything from the original bill, they interlineate it, and they write a brand new bill.
Yeah, they do.
And they call it a striker because everything's stricken from the original, and then an amendment to that original, by striking it, they add the new language.
That's why nothing's dead until session is sine die, because a lot of bills that you think you have either that you've killed or have gotten off the not passing, come back to life on a striker. Yes.
Okay. All right.
So now I know what I was going to talk about.
John, do we need to take action on 1313?
I've spoken. I don't want to go off your agenda too far, but I've spoken with Susan, the sheriff, about it, and it's moving forward. They can look at it. I understand it's been moving forward.
Okay, let us know if we need to sign.
I think it originated out of Pima County, and they estimated it could save the counties multi-million dollars a year, just because otherwise they say for every 60 video, every 60 individuals with a body-worn cam requires one person to look at it, full-time person.
Wow.
So that would be about 4 or 5 here in Yuma County. Maricopa County they have thousands of cameras.
And this would prevent that.
It would allow, it would definitely, they think it will mitigate the need to do that until either the technology is supported in a better way that would allow it. What you need to do is you have to redact video to protect victims and witnesses and information that's in there. And it's just hours and hours of video, and the only way to do it is to sit there and watch it at this point.
All right. Okay.
I know what I was.
Thanks for allowing me to plug my bill.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and Paul, the MOU with ADOT and the inspection, what you're trying to say is that it's going to put us in line with Calexico as far as we aren't going to be inspected here and then here and then here. So it takes somebody coming in from Mexico with a load of produce 2 days to get through, as it takes 20 minutes to get through Calexico. I know I'm exaggerating, but is that what you're talking about on the one that San Luis Port of Entry and the ADOT? Is that, we've been trying really hard to get ADOT to get off of the border because we have border inspections when they first come in.
Yes, Chairman.
That's what it is.
Yes, Chairman Reyes and Supervisor Pancrase, that's exactly right. That was the MOU that we had been talking about as part of the talking points. That
Good.
was so important to the region to have that. So
Mhm.
we will be under the same inspection protocols as Calexico.
Good. So we have equal footing now. Thank you.
If I could add something to it, that does not change their decision on whether to do a higher level of inspection.
No.
So it's one piece of the puzzle, but it's the decision on the ground of how many trucks they're going to inspect and at what level they're going to inspect them, how detailed the inspection is going to be, is still
there.
Is still not. We're still getting over inspected from that perspective.
Oh, okay.
The other piece is the entomologist. That hasn't been solved either. So if there's an entomologist who's in Calexico and we need the person over here, then that delays.
No, that hasn't been.
Right. So it's definitely a good piece that we got accomplished, but it's not the whole picture. So it's not going to
Okay.
solve all the problems at port number 2.
Yeah, our truckers were being inspected coming in, and then they were being inspected after they got out by ADOT, and so it was taking an extreme, am I explaining it right?
Yeah,
Donna?
you're explaining it right. Yeah, there was a-
Extremes amount of time to get through the port
And
of
if you,
entry.
well, if they only, one is a federal agency, the other one's a state agency, and if they could simply coordinate and inspect one time, as opposed to inspecting one time, the state inspecting one time, and then the federal agency inspecting another time, if you can just simply consolidate them so that the inspection takes place only one, and that they will respect each other's protocols, that already improves the idea. It's not to get inspected so many times by so many different agencies that it becomes a long and cumbersome process that
Your
creates,
produce spoils.
yeah, it creates a situation. The other thing that I was made aware recently in a meeting is that we don't have a cold room. And, a cold room is where customs can take out a load of a truck that's refrigerated out and inspect it and not break the chain of, a refrigerated chain, which we don't have in San Luis, Arizona, that is available in I think it's available in Nogales, and it's available, I think, in Calexico. That is very critical. That's something that hadn't been told before, that I just found out that we don't have a cold room, that whenever a truck that is refrigerated has to be inspected, it has to be taken to a separate location, which in this particular case is another, like a cooling plant or something, so that you don't break the chain of refrigeration in a refrigerated environment that the produce has to stay in. It's something that nobody's brought to us before, that I felt was kind of like, those are the kind of issues that I think they're easier to move forward because they're specific and they're only funding more than anything else. And so I want to put that into our list of items that we need to take a look at. The idea of having an entomologist on site and the idea of having a refrigerated room, I think should become higher in the list of priorities that we search a solution for.
Chairman Reyes, if you could, do you remember who gave you the information on the cold room? Or because I was under the impression that we did have a cold room because they offload produce already.
They offload it at a cooling plant nearby. The customs officers have to go over there. That's what I was told anyway. And that needs a little more research because it's something new to me. It was brought in the discussion of making sure that the Greater Yuma Port Authority deals with port issues, and that became an issue that we wanted to deal with, or not that we wanted to deal with, that came up as an item for discussion that I think we need to take a look at.
I'll share with Paul the discussion at GYPA meeting, and then we can follow up.
All right. Okay, anything else from the list? You?
Yeah, I wanted to bring your attention to 2190 on the second page. Please be sure to go in if you have not already and sign in opposition.
Accident disability related to correction office?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an overreach.
All right, anything else? Nothing. Thank you, Paul. And again, thank you for making sure that the county's presence is noticed in the economic development portion of the field up here. It's always nice to go to an event where there's someone from the county up there that represent the county. And you do a great job.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
All right, then the next item is a planning and zoning agenda. It's full legal description of property sites for overzoning cases available for public review at the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. This will be a regular public hearing item, which will make you will make a full presentation on each of the following items, followed by separate discussion, a public hearing and action by the Board of Supervisors. The one item is Development Services Planning and Zoning Division, review and approval of the calendar year 2018 annual report. Now, let me see if we can go through this process. According to this is a regular public hearing item, which you will make a full presentation, then I'll open it for the public, is that correct? And then after that, I'll bring it back to the board for their final decision, which will be either acceptance or making changes on the calendar year 2018 annual report?
Mr. Chairman, that is correct.
All right, good then. Maggie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maggie Castro, Planning and Zoning Director. This is the calendar year 2018 annual report. The full report is included in your packet in a Word or PDF document. The report contains information concerning planning and zoning, specifically the planning section and the zoning enforcement section activities. It also contains information about Building Safety Division, Environmental Programs Division, and the Engineering Division. The report is prepared pursuant to the Yuma County Planning and Zoning Commission bylaws. This is a summary of the activities that took place, or the planning section activities for 2018. And again, this is a calendar year report. The planning and zoning activities overall were up from this year or throughout the 5 years displayed on the table that's included in your packet. There was an approximate increase of 53.5% in the level of activity in 2018 compared to 2014, and an increase of 9% from 2017 to 2018. This map shows the activity, where the activity is taking place, and specifically it is for minor amendments, special use permits, subdivisions, rezoning cases, and variances. As you can see, the majority of the activity takes place in the Foothills planning area and also the Yuma Mesa planning area. And then there's a small cluster of activity in the Northwest Yuma planning area. There were 2 text amendments that were approved by the Board of Supervisors in calendar year 2018. One was Commission Initiative 1702, and the other one was Commission Initiative 1801. Commission Initiative 1702 was concerning the lot coverage, increase the lot coverage on properties zoned R2, R3, and RVS from 30% to 50%. And then Commission Initiative 1801 was a text amendment to various sections of the zoning ordinance. One was concerning issues that, or changes that took place at the state level for the Office of Manufactured Housing. One was a cleanup of the sign regulations. And then the changes to section 1102.02 and 1108.09 were due to changes in the building code. Staff also participates in various outreach activities throughout the year. This year, staff participated in 3 activities. One was at the Arizona Western College Career Expo. The other one was a presentation to the the Association of Mature American Citizens, AMAC, and then an open house at the Foothills Library on November 3rd. And staff also works with Channel 77 to post notices about upcoming Planning and Zoning Commission meetings on the county's Facebook page. The zoning enforcement section, we had a little bit of a decrease in the activity for in the total number of complaints received. From last year to this year, and also from the 5-year reporting period from 2014 to 2018. 2018 activity, like I said, the numbers are lower than last year's numbers up until the total cases initialized. I'm sorry, up until unfounded complaints. There were 60 this year compared to 48 last year.
Maggie, can
Sure.
Supervisor, what's unresolved open cases? What is that?
Those may be cases that are still ongoing. They were opened in 2018, but they carried over to 2019, or they may have been opened in 2017 and they're still open due to either continuances or just requests by the applicant to be granted more time to resolve the violation. This map shows where the zoning enforcement activity takes place. Again, the majority is in the Foothills planning area, and then another cluster in the Northwest Yuma planning area. For building safety, the new construction valuations are up this year compared to previous years. There was an approximate increase of 73% in construction valuations, in 2018 compared to 2014. There was also an increase in single-family residential permits, approximately a 99% increase from 2014 to 2018.
It's weird. Persons.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
How many persons do those inspections?
I'm sorry?
How many persons do inspections for building safety?
Mr. Chairman, there are currently 3 building inspectors on staff that do inspections.
Yeah, the weird part is that the evaluation is lower. That's unusual. I mean, that's weird. That, that it would be going down. I mean, the evaluations, normally evaluations are the opposite. They tend to slowly creep up. And that one's a pretty steep drop for a year.
Smaller houses.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Maggie, that's a nice question on that. The previous slide, the northwest area, is that the BNC colonial
What I
area?
was going to say, but I
Where
didn't want to rile
the,
that up.
the major part of it?
Yes, the majority of that area is the Avenue BNC colony.
Yeah. You figure that out, but since Gail was here, didn't want to rub it in.
Well, no, I just want to verify that that's the area she was
it is the
talking
area.
about
Yeah.
as far as where there were some problems and stuff.
And Mr. Chairman, this map shows the new development activity for the year in 2018. Again, the cluster of activity in the Foothills planning area. There's a lot of activity also on the Yuma Mesa planning area, and then another small cluster in the Northwest Yuma planning area.
Question. When you look at these numbers, especially when it comes to enforcement and those type of issues, what happens, how do we adapt if the city of Yuma annexes most of those areas? What happens to, in the majority of that activity is in the foothills. So would it then require for us to sort of get together and for you to give us an idea of what everybody else is going to be doing if we don't have that much activity up in that area?
Mr. Chairman, I'll defer that to the Department of Development Services Director.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board.
Good tag.
Craig Sellers, Director of Development Services. This is a topic that we're aware of the city doing the annexation. But at this point in time, the area under consideration is simply Mesa del Sol. Within our department, there's a number of services we provide in addition to permitting. For instance, Maggie's been going over the text amendments, the comprehensive plan, things like that that are being done and need to be done on a regular basis, regardless of how much economic growth we have going on in the county or the area that we're being tasked with enforcing. Engineering, for instance, has the HERF, flood control, capital improvements, things like that that are going on. Our admin section has its regular running the department and so forth that's going on. And so the main area where we have possibly some impact with the level of permitting would be our building inspectors. But we have over 5,000 square miles of area to cover. And with 3 inspectors, just due to drive time and so on, we're going to need someone going north, someone going east, and someone going south. even without the foothills. And so we are very small from the 2007 recession. We've dropped our personnel by a solid 50% from where we were.
Wow.
We are seeing an uptick in the valuation. And so the complexity of the projects is increasing. And we have divisions that have jurisdiction within the municipalities. For instance, environmental health and flood control have responsibility within the communities as well. And so obviously, depending on what the city does, and more importantly, what the residents do, because annexation is a resident petition process. It's not a community going in and just grabbing the locations. And so as we actually see things come forward, we would need to be involved with you to see what it is you'd like us to be doing.
Sure, sure. I obviously, I can see, all I was asking about is there's been some thought process about this, and obviously, based on the response, you guys have thought about this, and because we were, so reduced in scope over the last recession, in reality, we haven't grown to that much anyway with this additional, I mean, you have adapted with the staff that you have right now to handle more, but at the same time, you can actually reset your activities so that everybody that's employed technically would be employed doing something that is important and part of a critical part of the process that you guys go through.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Your question?
Yeah, Craig, it was reported that there are properties south of the interstate included in the annexation. I haven't seen the map yet. Do you have that map, the proposed annexation?
I haven't seen that. That's something that the city's been working on. So we may have one in our office, but I'm not aware of that.
Could you see if you could access it and put it out to the board so we were aware of what areas? Because I know it was reported there were properties south of the interstate as well. And I don't know how far.
I get a notice. I may have to, just pass it on because I do get.
Mr. Chairman and
Supervisor Simmons?
The last one I saw showed them annexing down to 35th place, which is the Walgreens. And pulling in that
just
whole.
north of the interstate.
Wow, that's a big.
I don't know how much that.
But anyway, I think that the bottom line is we're not particularly
It's
aware
mainly
of what it
the
is.
shopping center area.
Yeah.
We'll look at that and see if we can get a map from the city for you.
Thank you.
Right.
Appreciate that.
Okay, Maggie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Environmental Programs Division, Environmental Programs Division. Oops, wrong one. Again, activity has increased for the fees received from 2018 compared to 2014. Also, the septic tank inspections, septic tank permits issued, and septic tanks finalized all show an increase from 2014 to 2018.
Actually, they don't, do they?
I'm sorry?
Do they show an increase? Back up.
Yeah, from 142 to 156, final permitting.
156 in
Yeah, I see.
2018, 142, 2017. So there's
I was looking at the pumpers and haulers inspections, and I said, okay, well, that,
there's a decrease in, yes, the pumper hauler inspections.
okay.
Well, from 2014 to 2018, 5-year reporting period.
Mhm.
The engineering division, there's a list of the projects that were completed within the annual report. There were 9 capital improvement projects that were completed, 3 federal projects, and 2 irrigation roadway crossings that were completed by the engineering division. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation.
Can you back it up a little bit, just one more?
These
No.
two slides, I
The last
revised the
two.
presentation and the old presentation is still being displayed.
Oh, okay, so that's why you went through them
Yes.
really quick, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
No time to
Chairman,
look.
that includes
Don't
my
look at those,
presentation.
they're not
Don't look at
valid.
those. All right, so is there any questions, comments?
There she is.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Well, hold on a minute. I'll open it to the public in a minute, because this is a public hearing item. So, but before you go, are there any questions or comments here? No?
I just want to make one comment to Maggie and Craig. Thank you guys, because I know you guys are shorthanded for what you've got to do, and I know sometimes we get a little pushy, or we call, but
Anxious.
thank you guys for all the work you guys do, because I know you're shorthanded and you're doing the best you can.
Thank you.
You know, if it wasn't a commercial, I'll say this but for you, but. Okay, I'm gonna open it to the public. Gail, if you wanna say something, you need to step up. This is opening up, this is the public hearing part of this process, so Gail?
Hey, Gail Castricone. Do I need my address again?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Just keep
I just
checking.
wanted to speak about the annexation. When I went around for the improvement district, I had the nightmare of pre-annexation paper that turned out at the very end, after all the struggles with it, it wasn't even a legal paper. But anyway, at this point, we are surrounded by city, and I always said we were the stepchild. City didn't want us, and county doesn't want us, and they still don't. So the you know, pre-annexation is probably off the chart for us because it's an area that they have no interest in. We do have the sewer system in now, but it has so many problems in the area that I doubt the city would even talk to us about it. If they did, we go around with the pre-annexation agreement, you know, to see if people want that. But so I agree with Mr. Simmons about the Chairman Simmons about the amount of work that the county has to do. We've been dealing with that. And the only reason I want to prioritize my area is because we have been patient for the 40 years that I have had my home in that area. And so, you know, we're patient people, but we're looking for some results this time. So thank you.
Right.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Maggie, maybe you know this. If the people in that area want to annex, the city can say, no, we don't want you? I didn't think the city could turn them down if they had the numbers.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure I know the answer to that question. I know a petition does have to be submitted to the city of Yuma. As far as what the city's responsibilities are.
Yeah, they can. It is my understanding that the city can say, no, you're not, or they can ask for a pre-annexation agreement that's so onerous that, you know.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, if they wanted to annex and the city says, well, you don't have sewer, or you don't have water, or you know, you have too many dilapidated, they can, I mean, it's a decision the city fathers can make.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Thank you.
Anything else from the public? No, I'm gonna close the public portion of the hearing and bring it back to the board for their discussion and action, which in this case would be to either accept or deny the report.
I'll make a motion that we accept the report.
I'll second
As
it.
given.
Okay, the motion is to approve the calendar year 2018 annual report or accept it. It's been seconded. Any discussion? No discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries, and that takes care of that item. And we have event calendar of current events as the next item in the agenda. We do have a work session following this, so, and we're not gonna be making too many changes, are we? It's going to take place here? Just want to make sure we'll go in there,
Right here.
right? Okay, all right. Then I'm gonna go on into the board members and county administrators report of events and calendar, events calendar and the current events, and board members may discuss events attended or to be attended on behalf of the county. They may present a brief summary of current events and may update the schedule for future board of supervisors meeting as appropriate. No legal action will be taken. I'll begin with Supervisor Pancrazy.
Thank you. I'm just going to go over the last 2 weeks. I attended the safety procedures meeting with the safety team over in 197 across the street, and they are making great progress. And it's looking, and they're working really well together to make sure that they have a cohesive safety procedure over at
197 in case of an emergency. I attended Good Morning Yuma for the Chamber of Commerce. I attended the Preschool Development Grant Celebration, which was at Mary Elizabeth Post. I attended the Dorothy Hall Cornerstone Ceremony. It's a new elementary school out on 4.5E. It's going to be beautiful, and they left it enough land for expansion. And I'd like to thank the Hall brothers for donating the land to the Yuma School District Number 1. I attended the Humane Society Animal Welfare meeting. It was a group from Florida that comes in and helps humane societies change some of their procedures so that they can reach 90%, which means it's a no-kill shelter. And they're very close to reaching those goals, and hopefully with the help of this team that came in, which is a year-long program, we will be at 90% for both dogs and cats. So that would be wonderful. I attended the Gowan Science Academy. It's an organization. It's from the University of Boston. It's a project to set up a way of measuring creativity, and it's to set up a rubric for that. It's another one that's going to be a year-long project, and I'm so glad that we're finally moving away from standardized testing to rubrics that measure things that are really important, like a child's development of their creativity. I went to and listened to the judicial interviews for the Superior Court Justice vacancy. I also attended Paul Plant's retirement party that was held in his courtroom. So regardless of who is selected, they were all amazing candidates. So we have a really good pool to pull from for our judges. So.
All the way to the Supreme Court.
Huh?
All the way to the Supreme Court.
All the way to the Supreme Court. You're correct. I attended the 197 design team meeting so that we can talk about the new boardroom that is being planned. I attended my code meeting, which is Community Organization Active Disaster meeting that has the Red Cross and Catholic Community Services and several of the nonprofits. One of the things that was interesting is the group that's called HOPE have attained several Narcon, isn't it Narcon? For anybody to get. They're distributing right now, which will help if somebody overdoses and you're near. I got 4 of them for my vehicle just in case, and if needed, it would save someone's life. So if you are interested, Hope is down by the Eagles Hall in the North End Coffee area right there. You can go in and get some Narcan. They're plunger things that dispense medicine that will pull them out of an overdose. I was at my YMPO meeting, and I attended my Hospice of Yuma meeting. I attended the Forefront ED out at AWC for the new folks that are coming in, educational entities both on this side and at the other side of the border. That was very enjoyable. I also went over to Special Olympics, have their track meet over at Cibola. And so I went over and visited with the kids and the participants and some of the judges over at the track meet.
I'm tired already.
I'm sorry.
Jesus. Okay, now do you want to say anything to add to that? Supervisor McLeod.
Yeah, I, as mentioned previously, I attended the Amberley's Place Pinwheels event at the Desert Hills Par 3. Very well attended.
Good.
A lot of kids, a lot of families there. As I was leaving, I saw John Smith coming in with his daughters. I assumed she had a good time because there was a lot to do there. They were even giving haircuts. Mobile,
I need that.
Mobile unit, yeah. I also attended the Forefront ED Education Alliance. There were 11 new members
Something like that.
that had their logo up on the screen, but they introduced 13, so I wasn't clear. Do you know if it was 11 or 13?
It was, I think it was 11 that were there. I think it was 13 that was actually announced as part of that collaboration.
Yeah,
But
there's
just two of
13
them didn't-
announced.
Two of them didn't have representatives there.
So that's really growing, and including our own Yuma County JTAD that joined
Mhm.
that alliance. So that was good to see. I attended Good Morning Yuma. The mayor gave his State of the City presentation. Went to Phoenix for the County Supervisors Association Legislative Policy Committee. Also attended the ACO Legislative Policy Committee meeting telephonically. Also traveled back to Phoenix another time to the CSA board meeting. Attended the Dorothy Hall Elementary School Cornerstone Reveal. That was well done. And also attended the 197 Main planning meeting. And I will miss the employee appreciation event next week. I will be out of town.
Okay, Supervisor Simmons.
I'm just going to keep it simple and ask everyone to keep those Marines' families in their thoughts and prayers that were killed this weekend. That's it.
Supervisor Porches.
I attended the CSA meeting, also attended the county's border coalition meeting. That's pretty much it.
Right, I also went to the signing of the new members to the educational collaboration agreement. That is exciting to see. Maybe we need to expand a little bit on that, just by telling our public here that what it's about. We're talking about Forefronted as being an economic driver. In other words, it's uniting all these areas, the 4 states that really, we're in the 4-state corner here actually, and to promote economic development. And one of the first things that always comes up when people are talking about, or when industries are talking about moving into new areas, is whether there's enough labor force, educated labor force to handle that. And sometimes that is either in this side of the border or the other side of the border, and there hadn't been enough linkages that allowed people with degrees from the other side to get them approved on this side so they could do some work here, or vice versa. And so this collaborative is working on making sure that the curriculums match, so that essentially, you can get a degree here, you can get it, you can get your credits here, and you can get your credits on the other side, but you'll be given credits here because essentially the training curriculums, mirror each other. So that's really a very big step, and I think it's critical that step is taken first, because I think it shows the other areas that it can be done. Because when you're talking about adding 12 more to already 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, and we're talking about universities, technical schools, I mean, we're talking about a full range of educational opportunities, and that was really exciting. I also attended a Cesar Chavez event in the South County. They had a Cesar Chavez event, a gala dinner. The city of San Luis really went out this year and planned a full month of activities in relations to Cesar Chavez and his impact on the community out there in South County and in general with the Hispanic population. Went to the Greater Yuma Port Authority meeting, which some of the discussions were. Thank you for calling me in, because sometimes I think the senior moments start creeping in too often. I also met with a group called Vision Group, which is a group of involved citizens in South County that talk about issues such as the one that we're talking about, the logistics issues on the port of entry, et cetera, et cetera. And 2 things for the future. One is, do you have the budget calendar available yet? When the hearings are taking place and the agendas, are they set yet? The budget, the May budget. Is it done yet? I'm just asking a question, and maybe. It's on your calendar. It's in? Okay, so it's in the calendar. All right, there is a meeting of the National Associations of Counties in July, sometime in July. I think not sometime in July, in the middle of July, which conflicts with our meeting here. We need to start taking a look at whether we want to move that Monday meeting to a Wednesday, allowing the members to participate in that meeting and still having that meeting in the middle of July. It wouldn't be unusual. We move July to have one meeting. Normally that's the time we're done with the budget. We're pretty much, we're advocates of the less government rule type situation, the less damage, the less you meet, the less damage you can have type of thing. So just want to put that up in front of the agenda. Susan?
So, you're talking about having just the July 1st meeting or?
Well, it's either having the July 1st meeting or moving the meeting on the 15th, I think, to the 17th, to that Wednesday, which we have done before when it falls on a holiday or something. But if we, I think it will depend a lot on whether we have an agenda that's,
Actually, when we put out the district calendar, the board supervisor meetings, it was moved to July 22nd. So it'd be the third.
wait, was already?
The
Moved?
fourth Tuesday of the month.
Oh, because we don't have the calendar here yet.
Yeah, we do right here.
No, but that doesn't go to
I
July.
have it on July 22nd.
Oh, I
Yeah.
don't have it in-
Calendar in your,
On your email?
Oh, the
on your
computer
computer
calendar.
calendar, not on the.
We only get to
yeah.
June on the printed one, so. Some of this old folks don't, a computer calendar. All right, good. That's it for me. Susan?
yes, I attended the monthly Chamber of Commerce board meeting. Attended the. Got to do that. Thank you very much. I attended the Chamber of Commerce monthly board meeting. Anna Chalk was the chair, and so since she has left for an opportunity in Phoenix, I'll have to select their new chairman. They may just have a succession from the vice chair. I am not sure on that position, but I attended the retirement parties for Judge John Paul Plant and Pat Ray at the Arizona at Work. She is retiring after 30 years of being here, and she's going to be moving to Show Low. Also, the executive director at the Arizona at Work resigned last week, so they're going to be going through some transitions. The CFO is kind of doing the interim for a short period of time until they decide where they want to go with that position. I attended the GYPA Board of Directors. That's when we learned about the need for a cooling room. So I can get with Paul on specifics and get with Mr. Wadagi on what those specs look like so that we can pursue that. I met with the Yuma City Administrator last week regarding their salary plan. And we also talked about the fairgrounds future relocation because of its conflict with MCAS's plans for future squadrons to come in. And we want to make sure that we protect our bases, but we also have a suitable place for the fairgrounds to be located. The city staff and I think the mayor are heading to Washington, D.C. to speak with Senator McSally regarding some funds for the fairgrounds at the end of April, beginning of May. So we're going to get together and make sure that we have the same concept of what that fairgrounds relocation might need to look like based on the site selection process that happened last year. So I'll be bringing that back to you when it's ready for any kind of board action. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we're going to, are we getting the meeting done or are we having that work session as part of the meeting?
Part of the meeting.
Okay, so we have a work session that follows. I'll, sort of give a 5-minute recess so we can reset a little bit. And those members that need to, be here for the presentation, they're fine. I mean, it's a public hearing. I mean, not a public hearing, but it's a public meeting. It's a work session to discuss possible action concerning the Yuma County zoning ordinance in section 110700, which is temporary buildings and uses and permits. All right, thank you. 5-minute recess. I'm gonna wait until Supervisor Simmons gets to his chair so it doesn't, because the are we having, is this televised or is this televised? Okay, we're gonna get back to our work session. I don't know, we're back. Maggie, are you gonna start us off?
Bye, Gail.
Bye, Gail.
Bye-bye.
And we have the presence of our esteemed attorney here. Good.
That's it.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maggie Castro, Planning and Zoning Director. This item is being brought to you at the request of, after the outcome of the liquor license for the activity that took place out in the East County. Staff was asked to bring back an item to discuss possible actions or possible amendment to the zoning ordinance concerning temporary special use permits. Included in your packet is a list or section 1107 of the Yuma County zoning ordinance, specifically section 1107.03 that lists all the activities that are allowed with the approval of a temporary use permit. Keep in mind that temporary use permits are not public hearing items. They're administrative processes that are reviewed and approved in-house by staff.
Right now.
Currently, yes. Like I said, it's section 1107.03A through N are all activities that can be approved with the approval of a temporary use permit. So staff is here to accept any input or comments as to whether the board would like some of these specific activities to be listed under special use permits, or whether the board would like criteria to be established for the approval of a temporary use permit. Keep in mind that normally temporary use permits are they are a temporary activity that takes place either over a weekend or possibly several weekends during a specific month. For example, haunted houses during October, or pumpkin patch during the month of November. And they're intended to be, normally the turnaround is about a week process for a temporary use permit versus a special use permit, which would take approximately 3 to 4 months from the time that they submit an application to when the Board of Supervisors would take action on the application.
Mr. Chair?
Why is this to us today?
I think it's because, and I wasn't here, I think, on that March meeting, was I?
Mr. Chairman, I believe you were not here there.
Because I was.
I requested it.
Yeah, no, it's fine, it's fine. I just,
Yeah,
okay,
Darren.
so it's the request to find out if there's something that you specifically want in the regulations, or, because the question I have is most of the stuff that you talked about, it's already permitted. I mean, in other words, when you do a temporary use permit, you're allowed to really pretty much restrict almost everything, from the size of the facility to the access to the facility to, you guys.
Go ahead,
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
that's what I was under, and so when I saw this, I said, well, okay, is this to take the authority to, from the director to do that? Or is this what it means? Or is it to restrict the use of this to specific events or actions? Or, I get you. So, I got it. So I was just wondering that, right? And so the question is, okay, why is it here? That was the question. And I guess Supervisor Pancras is going to tell us why.
Mr. Chair, we're not even aware that these special use permits, temporary special use permits, are being issued. And some of those temporary special use permits, the people who are going to be impacted by them, the surrounding areas, they aren't notified either. So you have a special use permit, and it's a temporary special use permit, and the people around that area within the, whatever it is, 300 feet, what is it that they have to be notified on anyway,
the people around that piece of property are not even notified, so they're not even aware that it's going on or that it's going to happen until it comes right up here.
No, actually, they have to look at 1107A number 4. They have to notify the property owners.
Well, the property owners around the
Mr. Chairman, we were.
last temporary
Okay.
special use permit weren't notified. Go
Well,
ahead.
maybe, okay. go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman, specifically for 1107.0, 01A4, we're not required, that's in section of zoning ordinance. We're advised by legal counsel that surrounding property owners don't have veto power over the zoning ordinance, so we're advised not to use that section of the zoning ordinance to notify surrounding property owners. It's the same way as a building permit. If somebody applies for a building permit for a specific use on the property, if it's allowed according
Yeah.
to the zoning ordinance, we're not required to notify surrounding property owners. That's the same concept that applies to the temporary use permits that are allowed under section 1107.03.
This wouldn't be, well, this wouldn't be unusual. I remember us at some particular point in time getting into this discussion and saying, look, to us, over noticing, in other words, extending the boundaries of the notice, it's always to us, I mean, to me, I don't know about to everybody else, but if I remember correctly, we talked about not this specific item, but items such as zoning changes or, zoning requests or changes of zoning. And we talked about the fact that the state statute requires, that only so many feet from the property, a notice from so many feet. And we said, okay, well, broaden that up. As a matter of fact, over time, that is even gone into neighborhood meetings, where the developer has to call in the neighborhood and they have to meet and talk about it. We had a tower, request, cell tower request that developed into a lot because a lot of people found out about it. So if the issue is noticing, because I don't think the issue is whether anybody else has authority to deny or approve that. That rests on you, I think, in most of these cases, and us when it comes to us for a permit for some liquor license, which in this case I think it was a liquor license. The controversy was over the event and what they were going to do, and the fact that it was near, I think, canals and stuff like that were sensitive.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that I read that in the paper, I think. But again, the issue is whether that gets us to a point where we want to add any more requirements. That's the word, I guess. Whether we want to add any more noticing requirements, because I don't think you can just simply add something that says that neighborhood, like anyone within 500 feet or 1,000 feet. That's by statute. People who live within a certain radius have the ability to create a situation for us where a supermajority is needed, those type of things. There's a process for that. I think the special use permits get a little controversial, and this one did, I think, because of the nature.
Temporary special use.
Yeah, temporary special use permit. Get into a situation like that where I think that probably the less controversial item to discuss is whether we want to broaden the notice process to include more people instead of less people.
Well,
not because it's going to give them any authority to change it, but because you want to notice more people so they have a chance to comment on it.
I think the idea was that
There you go.
they wanted this all to come to the board instead of being done by the planning director.
Yes, that's what I wanted.
That's what they're after.
There were, Mr. Chair, and Maggie,
careful
I
what
looked
you
on the
wish for.
chart, there were only 3 temporary special use permits last year. Am I correct?
Mr. Chairman? Chairman, to answer Supervisor Pancrazi's question is, from 2009 to 2019, there have been 4 temporary use permits approved for special events throughout the county. 6 were for church events that involved a benefit concert.
Right.
So a total of 10 temporary use permits for special activities or special events.
From 2009
in
to
the
2018.
10-year research that we did, yes.
So that's not
I
much
get
for
it
the
now.
board to do.
I get it now. I get it. Okay, so this isn't about letting more people know about it. This is about moving the process of temporary permits from you to us. so that it gets approved by us. I'm not looking forward to that, I'll tell you that right
I
now.
also,
Mr. Chairman?
but I also think notification is also
Notification
necessary.
is not a problem. I tell you what, if a permit, if before you issue the permit, whatever you do, you notice us that there's an application, do we have any comments? If there's a part that can be added to the process so that board members are aware of what's going on, I wouldn't have a problem with that. It's not a statute requirement, but it's something that we would like to know before because we get to deal with the public,
Yes.
outcry.
Afterwards,
Mr. Chairman, too, and the main thing we're looking at is, because it's just the last year has come so prevalent, is food safety. And where these special use permits are being, issued. It's like this area, it's adjacent to the main canal. A year ago, we had the problem with E. coli and some other things. The farmland surrounding the events, that's what we're wanting to look out for and make sure that, one, our agriculture is protected.
Well, maybe we can add that to the list of items that the director can consider before issuing those permits. I wouldn't have a problem with that. Adding a food safety or a health, because I think your authority is so broad. I mean, really, it is broad. I mean, you can say no to anything that may be public nuisance. You can say public health and safety, like that particular case. I mean, if what we wanted to do is tighten up the process, Supervisor Simmons, in other words, add more restrictions and make sure that some of these things are considered, I think we can do that without, a lot of, controversy.
Can you explain again the part about the noticing? It's in our ordinance, but we're not doing it because, and then why didn't we ever change the ordinance if we weren't doing it?
Mr. Chairman, that section of the ordinance was adopted in, I believe, 2006, when the new zoning ordinance was adopted. After the adoption date of the ordinance, we were notified or informed by legal counsel that that section of the ordinance is not enforceable. So therefore, we are not notifying surrounding property owners when a temporary use permit is approved.
Enforceable in what way? I mean, what not
Mr.
enforceable?
Chairman, I'd like to defer that to legal counsel.
Yeah, what about noticing is not enforceable?
Chairman, it comes out of a case from Pima County, Pima versus McLaughlin, I believe. Basically, this is a administrative temporary use permit. If the applicant meets the criteria listed in the zoning ordinance, they're entitled to the special use permit. And if you start noticing the neighbors and suggest that they have a veto power, that if they all oppose it or the majority oppose,
I get it.
It would be contrary to state law.
No, I think that's what he just said is important.
Now, for a,
because even if it came to the board, if they met all the requirements, the board couldn't turn them down either, right?
if it was still going to be an administrative special use permit, correct. There'd have to be a criteria that the board would establish. And if they met the criteria, you would have to administratively grant it.
You get that?
Now, if you convert
Even
it to a
us?
special use permit,
Yes.
then it's a legislative act, and you do get quite a bit of discretion.
Anyway, so temporary special use permits, if they were considered special use permits and not temporary special use permits, we could deny them?
Right.
Well,
It would
Can
be,
get you the court case.
What's the difference between
right,
a
you would get
temporary
rid
and
of
a-
the criteria, and even if they met the portions of the criteria, all of it, if it's a special use permit, you still have the discretion.
We have the discretion.
Now, the fix that I guess to this situation, if there was something that you didn't like about that particular special or temporary use permit that was issued by the planning director, because she didn't address food safety and those things, you could add that as to one of the criteria that she must check off.
Yes.
And if
that's
there
what
were
we
those
said.
concerns,
We can
then
add that.
That and access, because I guess there was a question too, as farther if he had
Ingress
legal
and egress,
access
yes.
to the
Is
property.
access something you consider? I think you consider that, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, Arizona Revised Statutes Title 11 states that if a property does not have legal access, you cannot deny a building permit based on lack of legal access as long as the deed identifies that there is no legal access to the property.
But on a special permit, special
It
use
will work
permit.
the same way on a temporary use permit.
So we can't deny them if there's no legal access.
I mean, look, I'll tell you what. I find that when an administrator wants to deny a permit, they normally find a way. But, what you want is, if what you all want is for us to give her more tools, I mean, in this case,
Yes.
not her, but the administrator, more
More
tools to
tools.
consider when permits are issued, temporary. I'd have no problem with that as long as they meet legal, legal review. But if you want to move the permit process to the board of supervisors, I don't really like that. I mean, and I know that some of us are more active than others in trying to do that, but to me, that always places a situation where it puts us in a worse situation, because over the years, I found out that the more lawsuits that happen someplace else, the more limited we are in making a decision. So the time it gets to us, most of the time, we're bound to make a decision based on some precedent that's established someplace and based on some statute that you can't change. But trying to explain that to residents or concerned citizens, it's always been a problem.
Well,
Go ahead.
I don't know about everyone else on the, but if we could put the additional restrictions on legal ingress and egress to the property and considering food
That violates
safety.
statute, he just told us.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I
No.
get it. I get it.
We can do that, can't we?
Mr. Chairman, you might be able to put in that she's,
consider.
she can consider the access, whether or not it is going to affect things such as food safety.
That's right.
Well, and the scope of the event too. What are we talking about, as far as what is the special use permit for?
Temporary.
For Woodstock
special.
2
Temporary
or 3.
special use permit.
Well, I think the event went off without a problem, right?
Yeah.
It's not. Okay.
But that's not the point. The point is that, first of all, we're not notified, so we don't even know it's happening, and yet we're responsible for it. Second is some of these are in areas where economic development and our economic survivalship is impacted. And again, legal ingress. And
I get that. I think we're pretty clear on this, that this particular one had some issues with proximity to sensitive areas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so to me, the next step is to give you the tools or give you the direction of what concerns the board within the legal scope that you have to have them reviewed by legal. So if you could just simply add, and I think we're clear on that, add an item that would deal with food safety, and I don't know, you call it economic or whatever, but
yeah, our economic livelihood.
well, I think that's pretty broad, but I mean, whatever can pass
Fine.
legal muster that allows you to be able to deny a permit based on the risk to, health and safety, or, whatever that may be, that deals with the agricultural natures of where some of these events are located. And then as part of your process to issue notice to us,
Yeah.
so that we have a chance to, not to make the decision, I don't think at this level, but
No.
to comment on the situation.
There's a lot of times people will get a hold of us
That's right.
That's
to,
right.
to express their concerns or
Hello, I know
what they
that.
feel about it. So that way we know, one, the event's coming or that this is being planned, and then if people start coming to us.
Okay,
And everybody has my cell phone number.
all right. So do you understand where we're going? Is that okay with the board? Let's begin with that. If it doesn't change, if it becomes a problem, then we'll talk about bringing it over to us. But I think this was sort of like one of those situations where, some things combined to make this a controversial situation, where most of the temporary permits are for like Christmas things or for, like
The
pumpkin
pumpkin
patch.
patch, which
Yeah,
is
those type of
wonderful.
things are pretty non-controversial. To me, the issue is here, and I think it's being brought forth more than anything else by the sensitivity of what's happening in the food produce industry.
Yes.
With
Food safety.
the lettuce and the broccoli stuff and the, well, whatever. I don't
Food
want to get
safety
into
is a
that.
big
Food
concern.
safety is a big deal, and because we're an agricultural area, I understand the sensitivity to that issue. And what we want to do is give you the tools to deal with that, and let you know. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, so is the direction that a text amendment be processed that includes criteria for the approval of a temporary use permit?
Yes.
Because the
Additional-
current zoning
additional-
ordinance does not have a criteria. As long as a specific use is in compliance with the zoning ordinance and meets zoning ordinance requirements,
Let's see.
then the temporary use permit would be approved.
Yeah.
There are no criteria.
Yeah, well, add some criteria, and let's see whether it stands legal review.
And
What criteria
also
stands legal review?
included in the packet was a section of the Yuma County, I'm sorry, the Maricopa County zoning ordinance, chapter 13, that relates or that concerning temporary use permits. And it's got several items that have to be submitted with the approval or with the a temporary use permit application. I'm not sure if the board had a chance to review those. It's got approximately
Jesus.
I read everything that was in my packet.
Medical facilities, fire protection, parking
Yes, I read that.
areas,
Uh-huh.
access. Is that what you're referring to? The one that has all those?
13 items that have to be addressed
Good.
with the submittal of a temporary use permit application. I'm not sure if the board would like something like that
I
added to
would.
the Yuma County
I
zoning
wouldn't, but
ordinance.
I wouldn't. That's just
Okay.
so
onerous?
I do.
That's onerous.
I think that you can find
all of those
something in the
13
middle
things
there.
are in there already, right? No?
10
look.
copies of a narrative report which addresses the following items. It is just.
Yeah, it is.
Overkill.
It's a little bit more than I think that.
This is Yuma County.
Well, look,
Sorry.
and they have, there's a reason for all that, though. I mean, and when you read it, you find out it says this use shall be limited to a maximum time period of 2 years. So they're dealing with temporary use permits that are longer and much more impactful. We're dealing with temporary permits that are like for an event that lasts like 2 days or 10 days or whatever. We don't need to be this intricate and this complicated. We just need something added to the permit process that allows us to identify particular issues that have to do with food safety and health and safety, and maybe even access points.
Yes, access, traffic, and parking
that kind of
control.
stuff.
Identify
That's it.
the
I mean,
ingress
those
and
two
egress.
items, I think,
Yeah.
if we can find a way to add them so that they're part of the required information that you need, that would be, to me, that would meet the need right now. It wouldn't, I don't think we need to go
That
up
doesn't
to
matter.
13 items. And,
Sanitation facilities?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's.
Isn't that part of ours?
Mr. Chairman, all that, the majority of the items that are being discussed by the board were addressed for the AZ Jamboree event.
Yes, it was.
It was.
Yeah,
I agree.
Say we're not.
So we're just adding a couple, I think, that gives you, and again, this is intended to give you more authority and to be able to, deal with specific cases like the one we just talked about, because they're gonna come up again, and we certainly don't wanna look like we're not, or not look, but we certainly wanna make sure that something is being done to address the fact, that specific fact that food safety is a top priority when you have an event out in the county, because that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with events out in the agricultural areas that in some particular point in time may have an impact on our, one of our largest industries. agricultural
So we're not,
industry.
Mr. Chairman, so we're not asking them to notify those people that are directly adjacent?
Well, I don't know if notification is an issue as
Just
much
explained
as.
why we shouldn't.
But, Mr. Chairman,
No, he said, well, hold on a minute, but I think what you said was that we shouldn't imply that they have some sort of authority over the process, which
Just gonna cause
the
problems.
300 square foot radius have some sort of say in a process, because it's a decision that when it comes to us requires a supermajority. They do have that kind of impact. In this one, you're asking us to be careful not to, by advising them that what was going to happen, imply that they have something to say or do that will either approve or deny the permit.
and Mr. Chairman, the criteria you're asking for may require the planning director to reach out and get information from farmers that are either on the,
Sure.
on the traffic path to the event or close to the event. And that wouldn't be a problem.
Because you're talking, Mr. Chairman, at that area, there's two canals. You have the main canal, and then there's a lateral canal, which goes down several miles and feeds numerous other fields. That, was a concern.
Oh, no, again.
So that's why we're trying to make sure the ag is covered.
Maggie, I'd like to ask, you hear the discussion, but can you describe for us a rule or whatever you want to call it, something that must be
Extension.
met, what that would be that would have changed your ability to permit this event, I can't even conceive of what that might be.
It may not
Because-
have, but it would have let people know ahead of time, and it would have
No,
also.
it would have nothing, no notification has nothing to do with anything. He just explained why we don't notify.
Mr.
And
Chairman, I
while I'm
believe
thinking
that,
about it, Maggie, when if and when we do revise this, is take language out that we don't enforce. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that legal counsel just stated that if you do have a criteria that a certain activity will cause a negative impact to an industry or possibly irrigation or an irrigation district, that, and if it's spelled out in the zoning ordinance, it could be a basis for denial of the temporary use permit if we do receive comments
But
to
what,
that
my
effect.
question is, what would that look like?
Mr. Chairman, at this time, without drafting something up and without
Having legal
putting the
clearance.
zoning
Legal look at
ordinance
it.
into practice,
Because if you say you can't be within so much of farmland, cutting out the
It's
vast
not- I
majority
don't
of the
think so.
county. I mean, it has to be practical. And I can't even conceive of what that would be. I'll be interested to see what you come up with.
Well, let me,
'cause I
let
don't know
me,
what that would be.
let me try in some ways
That
to,
raises alongside cauliflower that's going to be
Yeah.
dusted with all those impurities, and then.
What
you
happens
have
during a
it-
windstorm?
yeah, hold on.
Just
Hold on,
come
I think
on.
that, look, I think that the farming industry, the agriculture industry has given us some guidance and in sort of what the things that can be done to protect them. And you know, now we drive from San Luis to here, and you see that every field has like a small fence to protect it.
Right.
I mean, they've done certain things. They've taken some
Safety.
measures to try to protect them from the whatever they feel they can protect them from. You can't protect yourself from a windstorm. I mean, that's just something like that, you know, or something so unusual that it's almost impossible to predict. But you can protect yourself from some things that you can predict. For example, you know, if you're next to an irrigation canal and you have an event like this, that you'll be told that you know, you have to have a barrier between that and, you know, the event. Things like that, you know, we need to, you know, common sense things to address. You can't address every possible, you know, situation. You can't really. But what we don't want to do is simply stand by and say, and not give you the tools to be able to say no to something that is going to create an obvious negative impact on the operations, agricultural operations and so forth. And either that, or if we take the responsibility from you and bring it over to the board, nothing is going to change other than the fact that we have to deal with public pressure when we, you know, make these decisions, which is fine. That's what they pay us for. I don't, you know, that's okay. But it isn't going to change the fact that most of this process are done by statute. But if they're directed by statute, whether you have to make the decision or we have to make the decision, that doesn't change the statute that pertains to what we're going to do. So what we like to do, and what I like to do, is give you more tools in the decision-making process. And some of those tools need to include something like notices to people who may be impacted in the agricultural field, and restrictions when you issue those permits, if you issue those permits, restrictions about what can be done next to some of these sensitive areas.
Thank
Is
you.
that broad enough?
Thank you, thank you, Tony.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
That's
Chairman.
Supervisor Porches?
I just wanted, you know, last, or what we had on the agenda last meeting, I think the water users were concerned about using the canal or maybe the road for entrance. So maybe just having, they can't be using something like that for an entrance. They gotta provide or have another entrance. I mean. Restrict, yeah, because there's
Ingress and egress.
there was an initiative back about when all this food safety started about not walking your dogs on the canal banks.
Right.
And you know, so that was because, you know, they take care of business as they're walking. When it rains, that water goes into the canal. And that's what the water that's used to irrigate the field. So maybe, you know, something like that. I mean, if they don't have an entrance, that it's not gonna be a canal, then that could be something that say, well, you gotta provide that.
Mr. Chairman, too, just to add to that is the fact that if we're granting them a permit, a canal is private property, technically. It's owned by the irrigation district. So how can we tell somebody, they can cross private property, to use it for an enterprise or whatever. I know out there with the canal, they allow it for local traffic only and agriculture. But if we open it up to a major event, now we're putting the liability on a private entity if something happens on their road.
I think we're going
I think you
to the
got
same
it.
place.
Yes, we are.
Okay, and what we're trying to do here is actually give you more tools, in the decision-making process. And I don't think there's any resistance from you, so I don't know why we're, but I guess we're just making the point, right? We're making the point, at least I think we're making the point, that what we need to do is give you enough tools to deal with the specific items such as, like I said, food safety or, protection of private property, however you encase that. It's just give you enough within the parameters that legal will allow us to. And looking at that Maricopa list of restrictions, I mean, if they allowed them to do that much, and I looked at that,
Yeah.
and that
it
is
seems
pretty
like we could do
extensive.
that.
We don't need to have that much. We just need to give you enough tools to make those decisions that apply to situations like the one we just had. Is that correct?
Yes.
Because
thank
I don't
you,
want to
Tony.
be an overbearing type, I'm sure that Supervisor McLeod here wouldn't like to have like 13 different rules and regulations applied.
Oh, my goodness.
Because there's
No,
going to be
Russell
some
doesn't.
small time events that don't require this much. And we don't want to make it too complicated for those people who want to have like a fundraiser or something that isn't non-country. Because if you look at where this can be done, it can be done in all rural and residential zones, C1, CS, C2, C3. So basically, it can be done anywhere. But in specific areas that impact our agricultural fields, it needs to be looked at in that light, okay? I didn't think it too long.
The entire county.
That's right.
Out.
Okay.
You're gonna have to be
Chairman,
careful.
I'm sorry, but we don't want food safety to be impacted by it because it kills people.
How is food safety impacted by an event?
When it's next to a
You
canal
talk about
bank, it could be.
Sand drags kicking up.
He's
sand,
from an
oh my
urban
goodness,
area. He
40
doesn't
mile,
understand.
50 mile an hour winds come through here and blow sand everywhere.
But
All right,
Let's
I
be
think
realistic.
I think we've gone through this enough, and I think you know where we're at, okay? No, we need to,
I'll need a motion stating,
that this was a work
directing,
session.
directing staff to draft language and bring it back to your review.
I
to
move
address.
that we
I
draft
move that we don't
language.
do anything.
I move that we draft language to allow staff,
That staff draft language to
draft language that will allow them
monitor and,
more control over temporary special use permits.
all right. Before I ask for a second.
I will second that.
Thank
Hold
you.
on. All right. There's been a motion and a second to do just that. Susan?
Early on, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned a process where the planning director would notify the board of supervisors when a temporary use permit is being applied for, so you would be aware of that it's happening. So did you want to have them include that in their policies?
I don't know if that's, I don't know if that's necessary. I don't know if we have that in any other regulation and any other action that you take. Otherwise, we may be asking later on to have every building permit sent to us for review. In this particular case, I think that, what we're giving you is direction. I don't really want to have an oversight situation in every permit that you pull out.
Well-
I think that you should have,
Hey, Maggie, I have your cell phone number.
and I think that you should know, you have enough, you've been around and have enough, I think, common sense to understand that when there's going to be an application or a temporary permit for something that it's in Supervisor Simmons' district or is in, Supervisor Pancrazi's district, to let them know, look, this is what's happening. And that's it, just a notice, a courtesy notice. I don't want to make it a mandatory notice, but a courtesy notice would be appreciated, Maggie.
Thank you.
Okay? Because it will involve having to deal with the public, with those events, okay? Is that okay? All right, is that it? There's a motion and a second to go ahead and instruct staff to work on, to draft some, more requirements that will apply in the issuance of a special temporary
Temporary use permit,
okay? Any more discussion on this item? No? All those in favor signify by stating
Yeah,
it?
I have discussion. Sorry, I know you want to get going, but
No, I'll take it. I'm gonna lean back.
you've been on this board 20 years.
I know.
When was this ever an issue?
Now,
You
it's
know?
an issue now. And look, and I'll tell you why I'm considering this, because I know what you're coming from. But there's never been so much emphasis on food safety as it is now. I mean, 10 years ago, we wouldn't have been thinking about any of these issues because there weren't issues. There are issues now. And I think it behooves us, the older, the older generation here, to understand that some of these are new. Some of these issues are not, issues that we would be discussing 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. So we're discussing them now because they're really up in front of us. And I think that dealing with them is not something that I think I would subscribe to. And I think that even if we resist, and we do resist more regulations, and we do resist getting involved in more processes, because we think government should be less, not more, I think that in this particular case, we're going to have to bend our feelings and understand that this is an issue that pertains to this particular board.
Mr. Chair, may I make a
May
comment?
Remember to quit while you're ahead.
Okay, I'll
We're
quit
going
while
to have
I'm
this
ahead,
vote.
but
We're going to have this vote, and I think it's going to be either 4-0 or 5-0. So let's just take a vote, okay? All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
No.
Well, see, it's 4-1. Okay, well, let's continue. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you very much. And,
Thank you,
you know,
Maggie.
thanks.
Thank you, Craig.
Yes.
What's left? Is there anything left on the?
By the way, does not mean I'm opposed to food safety.
No, I know. Does anybody have all the remaining bunnies in place? You're just
I
showing
still
me?
have all
Everybody's
mine.
been eating them? No more items in the agenda. So therefore, this is the end of the meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you.